Hey, yo, what's good, what's good, what's good? Welcome to Reflections of a DJ, the R.O.A.D podcast presented by DJ City and Beat Source. We have invaded New York. We at the Sound Collective. I'm one of your hosts, DJ Crooked. We got Brooklyn's beloved DJ Goldfinger in the building.
What up, world?
And rest in peace to DJ Never
Yes,
Forever. And we have one of my best friends, one of my favorite DJs in the world, just coming back from Africa. He's been on a 4-month sabbatical in Africa, and I want to hear
Where art thou?
I haven't seen this motherfucker in like 4 months, 5 months or something. He wasn't supposed to be out in Africa that long, and he's back. We have the co-founder, co-creator of Everyday PPL, one of my favorite DJs in the world, DJ Moma in the building. What's good?
Hey, thanks for having me, fellas.
Back again.
Yeah, I'm trying to get all the pauses out now. Pause. I'm getting all the pauses out. We gotta do it later.
Nah. So what's good, man? You back in the States?
Yeah, man, I'm back. Back at it. I was gone for a few months.
You was only supposed to be gone for like few weeks.
This time I really intended on coming back mid-January. I was like, I'm not gonna go to Africa for months.
Right. After last year, you were like, you said like I'm kind of done traveling.
I was vacationed out. Mm-hmm. I was I've gotten tremendous privilege. I got to travel all over the world, all the continents, all my favorite places. I got to spend months. And then what I realized that I wasn't getting the time to do is to spend time at home, waking up in my bed without having to go to the airport.
Right.
And I was like, how can I get a month or two in New York where I'm just living a regular, ordinary life? That's kind of what I was missing. I wanted a regular, ordinary life in New York. But it didn't really happen that way because, after New Year's Eve, I flew back I was in Ethiopia at the time for the last Everyday PPL of the year. And I flew back to Cape Town just for a few days. A bunch of friends were in town. R.O.A.D had a gig that day, which was a bit of a coincidence, but it was great for me. Mm-hmm. And I ended up having an amazing week and a half in Cape Town. Really, really good ass time. And then I kind of convinced everybody that we were with. I said, let's go back to Johannesburg, because a lot of people know of Cape Town. It's the glamorous part of South Africa. It's LA, it's Miami. But Johannesburg is New York. You feel me? And from the outside looking in, unless somebody can explain to you or expose you to that culture, you're not really going to know the value of Johannesburg. So I had a bunch of people who were like, I'm loving Cape Town. And I swear to God, bro, it was the New Yorker in me, The New Yorker in me, like, nah, this ain't the real deal. Cape Town is great. It's beautiful. It's lovely. Come with me to Johannesburg. It's dangerous, but I know how to move and I'll take you to the spots,
Right.
And I think, people's minds were blown. They were just like, Amapiano hits different here. Afro house hits different here. 3-step hits different. And I'm like, yeah, this is like going to New York in the late 80s, early 90s and experiencing hip hop.
So explain that. Like what's the difference musically in Cape Town versus Johannesburg?
Cape Town is a South African city, so the South African influence, the music is there, the people know how to consume it, they know how to enjoy it, and they have tremendous producers there, right? But I'm gonna go with the same analogy. If you come to Johannesburg and Pretoria, which is the capital of South Africa, it's very close to Johannesburg, about an hour drive. It's the early 90s, and you're getting to hear Pete Rock cook something up and then play it at the club 2 hours later, right? You're getting to hear Primo cook something up and play it live at a show.
But in Amapiano form.
In Amapiano terms. And I'm talking about Kabza the Small. I'm talking about Kelvin Momo.
Right. Everybody in their prime right
I'm
now.
talking about DM Tuda. I'm talking about the young guys, TNK Music, Black Nick and Master Black, and it's just unreal.
It's like a fucking factory. They just
it's
make
a factory.
Hits and
the speed of the work and the dedication to finishing the work. There's hardly no unfinished tracks over there. You start a track, you arrange, you mix as you compose. Somebody comes in, lays the vocals, you put a rough blend on it, and you're playing it that night.
Wow. Is that good or bad, do you think?
I think it's good in terms of the evolution of the sound. It's almost like
But is it moving too fast?
it's not moving too fast for them over there, right? In the sense that if you're in South Africa, you hear Amapiano on commercials. You hear Amapiano when you're in the shopping for groceries.
In restaurants.
Right. It's not the same. It's not the same. When we hear it here, it's meant to evoke a certain emotion like, ooh, Amapiano. This is a vibe. Over there, it's almost like a standard form of music. So the thing that does evoke the emotions is those spikes. It's when people come up with new shit, new sounds, new kind of progressions.
What's good, everyone? This is P-Dot from Reflections of a DJ, the R.O.A.D podcast. Whether you're just discovering the podcast or a day one listener, if you've been loving the content and want more, here's your chance to support the pod, get closer to the action, and unlock exclusive content by joining our Patreon. For just $5 a month, you can join our Tier 1 R.O.A.D subscription. This is for our loyal listeners who want early access to new episodes 3 to 4 weeks ahead, your name in the credits of every video episode, and access to our exclusive R.O.A.D edits pack. For the hardcore supporters, we've got our Tier 2 R.O.A.D for Life subscription for just $10 a month. This is the all-in package. You'll get everything from Tier 1, plus a monthly bonus episode, early access to our exclusive R.O.A.D 10 and R.O.A.D Talk interviews, behind-the-scenes content, our In the Crate series, along with unreleased projects. This is your chance to support the podcast and get more of the content that you love. Join the family today at patreon.com/R.O.A.D podcast. Check the link in our descriptions. We appreciate you, and let's keep this journey going.
Okay, so the Amapiano in the States that we're hearing right now,
Yeah.
it's like you said, it's a vibe. It's just like this non-threatening kind of, it's like this new kind of canvas for like vocals. Like
Right.
people can put like old vocals on it and like reintroduce 90s R&B
Right.
or like, whatever pop music from the 2000s and layer it over Amapiano. And it gives like this kind of new sense of like, ooh, this is a very ethnic or like very like kind of cool, like musically forward environment that we're in.
I'm going to help you out.
Yeah.
It's Soho House music. It's the music you hear when you're sitting at Soho House.
Right.
And you're waiting
But
for
it's
the
every
waiter.
restaurant now. Like I could go to a Greek, like an upscale Greek restaurant or Middle Eastern restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm hearing Amapiano. That's the soundtrack, right?
Right.
So how is it more different now? Like in the source of Cape Town and
That's kind of
South
like
Africa.
a polished version, because Amapiano is sophisticated music,
Right.
Rhythmically, it's sophisticated. In terms of chords, it's sophisticated. Vocally, there's so much about Amapiano to love. And when it gels, it's very easy to present as something that's both familiar and futuristic. So that's why it really works for restaurants, playlists. That's why it kind of took over SoundCloud and Bandcamp. But the way they're cooking it up in South Africa, they have a different objective. It's more guttural, it's more ancestral, it's more spiritual. You know what I mean? And it's meant to, like, 9 times out of 10 to make you dance.
Right.
In a way that you can't resist. It's not beating you upside the head. It's just nudging you to dance.
But you were mentioning also like new sounds are getting introduced, like Rema, right? It's becoming a little bit more, like you said, aggressive, but also a little like electronic a little bit.
So what Rema's doing on the Afro beat side of things, he's introducing some more ravey electronic elements, for sure. Amapiano has that too. Like, Amapiano is low-key turning into an umbrella genre, the same way that if you think about house music, there's so many subdivisions. You can't even begin to count the subdivisions.
Right.
In house, and Amapiano's starting to have a lot of these.
And it's like we were talking about with Cash and ATL, right? With his party, Bomba Tuesdays. It's almost like you have to focus purely on that one genre because it's growing so fast and it's evolving so fast.
I could literally dedicate all my time to strictly Amapiano, 100%, and I probably still wouldn't have enough time,
Really?
Yeah,
it's
it just
moving
depends.
that fast.
It just depends what your objectives are, as a DJ or for your career. But you definitely could.
Wow. So what's the difference with the Cape Town sound to Johannesburg?
I think Cape Town is like just the first city outside of Johannesburg, meaning that if you go really, really far from Johannesburg, I'll probably say LA, LA is like the last place where Amapiano has a huge influence because of how far it is.
Right.
And then Cape Town is just the closest, you know? So they get it. It gets to them within a week or two as opposed to a month or two or 6 months. And, you know, they have their own vibes too with the Gom music. They make a lot of Gom music in that region. They have their own Amapiano artists as well. They have South African hip-hop collectives, but it's not the source of Amapiano.
So you were going to South Africa. You were supposed to stay in Cape Town. Then all of a sudden you had an impromptu detour to Johannesburg.
Yeah.
And then you got engulfed into everything going on in Johannesburg. And you were like, I remember talking to you, you were like, I got to make music here, right?
You know, the minute I reached Johannesburg, a lot of people just offered to take meetings with me, you know, record labels, artist managers. A lot of people just wanted to like chop it up with me.
Wow.
And
times are changing.
Yeah, man. You know, it got the juices flowing.
Right.
I was just like, everybody's like, hey, we should do this. We should do that. And I was like, well, actually, you know, I've been kind of wanting to do this and do that. And everybody's like, well, we got resources. We got access to so-and-so. We can connect you with this, that, and the third. And I was like, man, maybe I should stay here. So, yeah, the next day, I went and bought a keyboard. I bought a 88 keys, you know, Roland keyboard. And I set it up in the hotel room, and then I just started like stockpiling gear. You know, I got studio monitors, I got a computer monitor, I had a MIDI. I already had a MIDI keyboard over there, and then I had my homie DJ Ethan Thomas from Brooklyn, who hit me up, and he was like, "Yo, are you still in Josie? I'm coming through next week." And I was like, "Yeah. You think you could maybe bring some gear for me?"
Wow.
So he grabbed my mics, he grabbed the interface for me, he grabbed a mic stand, a bunch of other things, a bunch of cables. And next thing you know, I was set up in the hotel suite, and I was like, all right, well, this is one hell of a setup. So then I negotiated a deal with the hotel to make it like a monthly rate, because I figured I would want to do at least 30 days with this setup and possibly re-up for an extra 30. So I made a deal with the hotel manager, and interestingly, they remember me because that's the same hotel I was locked down at during COVID.
Yeah.
So I already spent 2.5 months in that hotel.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I made my Moma piano project,
Right.
which for me, I still, you know, really cherish that project. It was the first time that I had so much time to work exclusively on music because there was no DJing, you know, and just being in that hotel, it reminded me of that time, and I turned down a bunch of gigs while I was in town in Johannesburg.
So a little bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't want to DJ. People were like, yo, you should come. I was like, nah, that's not what I'm here for. I just want to hang out, get inspired, hear the sounds, chop it up with people, and then cook up.
How do you start like building an album or working towards like, I don't know, are you trying to build an album?
You know, honestly, at first I was just cooking up for the sake of cooking up. I just wanted to make music. But, you know, the beauty of social media is if you post a clip of yourself in a penthouse suite with a great view,
Yeah.
and a bunch of people in the industry be like, yo, what's going on there? I want to come through. I want to bring a vocalist. I want to bring a guitar player. I want to bring one of my producers, right? And at first I was like, nah, man, I'm just trying to make my own music, and I'll maybe hang out with vocalists later, or I could use a guitar player. But very quickly I was like, man, you know what? Bring your producers, man. Let me collaborate. Let me learn from these people. And let me see like the thought process of how this music is really made. And it's really daunting, man. Some of these guys are so fast, and it's all like almost like Guitar Hero type of.
Really?
Yeah, like everybody's drawing everything. I'm coming from a background of playing the notes, and then once I play the notes, whether I play them live or in MIDI, I go in the MIDI and then I modify the MIDI. I
So
adjust
you're doing
it.
like Fruity Loops or something like that? Like what are you using?
Yeah, I'm using Ableton.
Right.
They're all using Fruity Loops. And this is another discussion. I don't know if we got time for it.
Yeah.
But if you're going to make Amapiano and mostly Afro House, you might need to be on Fruity Loops.
Really?
Like you're almost drawing and
On FLS. Yeah. I mean, listen, you can draw in every DAW. That's not a problem. But
how
the way a
fast
lot
they
of
do
these
it.
guys came up is they came up drawing. So they have a visual representation of the sounds that they don't need to hear them. They can physically draw them, whether they're creating drums or chord progressions or like top line melodies. And you'll see a homie draw something and you're like, what the fuck is he doing, right? And then he'll play it and it'll be just a perfect, you know, riff. And you'd be like, so they have this visual representation. And because again, a lot of them don't really know how to play the keys, but they know how to solo, which is insane. And the way they do it is they will learn one scale. I think there's one scale that a bunch of these guys know. I don't know if it's like B minor, B flat minor. They know how to play it. They know the amount of black keys and white keys on it. And then depending on the song they're making, they just transpose the keyboard. Right? You understand what I'm saying? So they could be working in E flat minor and they'll transpose the keyboard a couple of semitones. And now when they play that B flat minor scale that they know, it sounds like it's in E flat minor.
Wow.
And they'll use that and they'll just keep transposing. And so you'll see somebody that's shredding like a church organist, but they don't really know how to play the keys. And again, you know, necessity is the mother of invention. You're looking at a lot of really young people, extremely talented, who got a lot of time on their hands. And they figured out how to maximize Fruity Loops. They figured out how to maximize these MIDI keyboards. And it was great for me to witness, you know.
But you have no interest in like switching or transitioning to Fruity Loops for that.
I think I have to. I have
really?
to.
Because you're the way you approach is completely different. You like sat with tutors and like musicians to like learn
I learned,
scales and chords.
I studied the jazz piano for 2 years now.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember I did an Ableton course a long time ago, maybe in 2013 or 2012. I did like 6 months Ableton course. But what I'm learning with Fruity Loops is that it's another language that I need to learn. You know, like as DJs, we can rock a set on Serato, we can rock a set on a controller, we can rock a set on sticks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think I need to know and understand Fruity Loops almost as well as I understand Ableton. If anything, for the stock plugins, bro.
Really?
Their stock plugins have the best sounds. And then the internal sound engine of Fruity Loops has a limiter that's already on. So right out the box, your drums are knocking in a way that Ableton cannot, you know? And so the purists come and tell me, yeah, bro, but Ableton sound better. It's just that Fruity Loops got that limiter. I don't care. At the end of the day, the shit sounds crazy right out the box, you know?
So you have to like relearn like and like kind of get fluent in Fruity Loops now.
Yeah, it's a
Just
different
having a
language.
repertoire.
Listen, a lot of the themes, how you load a VST, how you load a sound, you know, how you record, quantize, whatever. A lot of the themes are universal, but it's the language. It's the shortcuts. You know, first time I used it, I was like, how do I copy and paste? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
How do I cut a sound file in two? How do I stretch something? Like little things like that. And it's not going to take long. It's probably going to take just 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I was hoping I'd have to do at this stage of my career, you know?
Well, who was reaching out initially? Like producers and musicians or vocalists?
There's my man, Devin. He's a homie from Joburg who has been in marketing for years.
Yeah.
And he's an early believer in everything, Everyday People and DJ Moma. He's got his brands to support Everyday People in the past. And with him, I had already collaborated with really dope artist, Black Nick and Master Black, that he co-manages, more or less. And he was like, yo, I want to bring Black Nick and Master Black. I want to bring them through. I said, yeah, bring them. Those are the homies. So, you know, so we cooked up a session. Midway through that session, I had texted some homies from the nightlife scene who, you know, I realized a lot of people in South Africa have multiple talents. Somebody could be a DJ, but they might also be a vocalist, which is kind of rare on this side, you know? And I'd hit up the homies. I'd be like, yo, come through. I might got a track for y'all to hop on. And they came through and hopped on that track. And we had a track, you know, 3 or 4 hours. Everything was done. Also had my boy Kai, who co-manages Waffles.
Yeah.
So he's part of Waffles' crew. And he was like, yo, I want to come through. I want to bring my guy, Ice Beats Slide. And I was like, yo, I'm a huge fan. You know, I've been playing his tunes for a couple of summers already. So he came through with Ice Beats and we made a fire track. You know, honestly, yeah, the track I made with with Black Nigga Master Black, with Ice Beats. That shit was fire. Then I had another homie, K Zaka. Shout out the boy K Zaka. He has DJ'd Everyday People, Johannesburg 3 or 4 times. He's an early collaborator of my brother Boss. He used to do photography and content for him. Pre-COVID. And so he came through and he brought the youth. He brought the youth, them. You know what I'm saying? He brought like the young producers, the young vocalists, and they cook up in a totally different way. You know what I'm saying? They might pull up to the stew at 2 or 3 p.m. If you keep them fed, if you keep them liquored up, if you keep the hookah going, you might have to kick them out at 5 a.m.
Sheesh.
They don't want to leave.
They don't want to leave. And they just keep on getting more and more creative. I literally had just kind of like ran out of energy. I was like, all right, guys, I made up some bullshit. I got a call in the morning. I just wanted to kick them out at that point.
How many tracks do you have right now?
Amongst those 3 sessions, 4 of those sessions, we probably made like 9 or 10 tracks.
9 or 10 tracks.
So I have enough for an album, EP. And then there's the stuff that I made on my own with my engineer from Cape Town, X Dizzle. Shout out X Dizzle. X Dizzle is a homie that I collaborated with very early, precisely when I was in South Africa during COVID. And I was on YouTube trying to figure out what sounds to use, this, that, and the third. And he had a bunch of tutorials on YouTube. So I used his tutorials to really craft the Moma piano project. And then I hit him up on his Instagram. I was like, yo, I love your YouTube videos. Do you also mix and master? And he was like, bet it up. So I sent him the tracks. He mixed and mastered them. We went back and forth for a couple of weeks. I always had a great relationship with him. And when I came back this time, he's from Cape Town. So when I was in Cape Town, he pulled up on me during my week off, and we were just talking about music. You know, we just talked about music. And I was like, bro, I said, you should come by. You should come to South Africa. You should come to Johannesburg. I think I'm going to get the hotel suite, and I'm going to set up the gear. You should come, and we should cook up. And he came for about a week, and we probably made like 7 or 8 tracks.
Wow. That's dope.
So I have 2 kind of projects, more or less. One sounds like a continuation of Moma Piano. It's very chords driven. You know, it's very kind of soulful and bouncy. And then I have this other project, which is a collaboration with authentic Amapiano artists from Johannesburg, whether young or established. And that's just like heater after heater, you know, like face melting shit for the club.
Wow. So what is your like plan for this? Like, are these ready to go, or you still need to like, you have all the beats and now you're looking for like vocalists, or like, are you trying to get like, you know, American, you know, singers or like artists to like sing on this shit?
That's a good question. I think everything that I collaborated with the homies in Josie is pretty much ready to go. I mean, final mixing, mastering, arranging, because, you know, those sessions are never without a vocalist.
Yeah, that's the face melting shit, right?
Yeah, but like, you know, the vocalist, first of all, you don't know who's the vocalist, because you might know who the producer is, you might know who his manager is, and there's a couple of homies just chilling on their phones, and while you're cooking up, they're just chilling. And then after about 2 hours, somebody be like, yo, you ready? And they'd be like, yeah, I'm ready. And then they pull up straight to the mic and start spitting. And what I really love about the process is that, unlike the way we do things in the music industry out here, unless you have your dedicated producer, you're mostly playing beats for people. Like, hey, I got some beats. Can I play you some beats?
Right.
See if they like anything. They may or they may not. If they don't, you'll cook something up for them. This is totally different.
Everybody's in the room.
Everybody's in the room.
Yeah. And they're creative.
And everyone's in the room. It's like old school shit. Everyone's in the room. The writers in the room. The vocalists in the room. The producers, musicians are in the room.
Right.
Everyone's cooking at the same time. So even while the beat's being made, the writer or vocalist is listening to the beat getting made from scratch, right?
And they're already hearing about the progression of their vocal. What's the introductory line?
Right.
How am I going to stack it when they bring in that bass line, right? How am I going to change it Or what chants am I going to add when they bring in that snare? Because they hear you cooking up.
Right.
So it makes for a really holistic approach. And it helps you understand why so much Amapiano sounds good. Like, no one's really ever heard a bad Amapiano record. You know, it might be unremarkable, but you've never heard a bad Amapiano record from South Africa. It's because of this kind of holistic approach where everybody's cooking up at the same time. The South African side of the project is pretty much good to go, mixing and mastering.
So that's going to drop first?
Some arranging. I don't know yet. I don't know.
Okay.
And then what's more like the Moma piano, you know,
the
volume 3, that one I have to figure out what I'm going to do with it. I'm either going to look for, you know, to start songwriting and look for original vocals for it, or I might drop that one as a SoundCloud, Bandcamp kind of thing. I'm not too sure, you know, just for people to have, and then maybe pursue a distribution deal and a major label release with the other one. I'm not too sure, because I don't want to sit on it. I don't want to. One thing that I learned from the experience in South Africa is to not be too precious with holding on to music.
Really?
You know? Yeah.
Just to yourself.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Just get it out there, because it can be made so fast. You know. And there's always. You can always hook up a new track. You can always make a new beat. You got to have the time, granted. You know what I'm saying? And you got to have the mind space where you can create. But yeah, so depending on what I do with the Moma Piano project, it could be one project with a side and a B side, you know, maybe 10 to 12 tracks, or it could be 2 separate EPs, or it could be 1 EP and 1 freebie. I'm not too sure yet.
This is also like the first time you've been seeing, like, because Everyday People's been going to Africa for so many like years. Like, how many years has Everyday People been to like Africa?
I think the first one was 2017.
2017.
Or 2016. I mean, it's...
Like, what are the cities it was hitting? What was like the tourist cities for Everyday People?
Yeah, generally it's always Johannesburg and Cape Town. For sure. And then it depends if we want to go east or west, right? When we go east, it'll be like Nairobi and Addis Ababa, maybe Zanzibar, right? If we go west, you're looking at Accra in Ghana, Lagos in Nigeria, and Dakar in Senegal. But it's always anchored by South Africa, Johannesburg and Cape Town.
This is the first year you started seeing like other American themed, like curated parties come to Africa, right?
Yeah, I think the concept of the traveling party,
because Selection was out there, right?
Yeah, Selection. I think they've been going to South Africa for a little bit, but definitely Joe K was over there, touring. Andre Power was there the year before. You know, we had him on Everyday People. So Selection, they have a strong footprint in South Africa, and they tend to do things over there. But yeah, other like traveling parties from the States were mostly in Johannesburg and in Accra.
But that's like the first time you saw like other like kind of American themed parties come out there, right?
Yeah, and to be fair, it kind of informed our itinerary, you know.
How so? What do you mean?
So let's take Accra, for instance, right?
Yeah.
Accra is an incredible city, you know, in Ghana. When it comes to the activations in December, it's only a handful of hotels and a handful of clubs. So if you have 15 to 20 collectives looking to activate in Accra over December, unless they build out their own stage like Afro Future does, they throw a festival, it's like the same rotation of 2 or 3 clubs, right? And if you do that year in, year out for 4 or 5 consecutive years, it gets redundant, you know? So that's why we didn't go back to Accra this year. But we seen that other homies was going to Accra. And that kind of further kind of like validated, you know.
You're not going?
Yeah, because I was like, you know, if other homies are going there, they're going to get the Everyday People style parties. They're going to have a good time. And then we can look at doing something else. And instead, we pivoted back east. We went to Nairobi.
Right.
We went to Addis Ababa. And I thought it was for the better, because in Nairobi, you know, we have a great venue that we've been partnering with over there for also like 7 or 8 years. but we found another venue, like a monstrous venue, 3,000, 3,500 people, that can be partitioned, weatherproof, retractable roof. And I was like, yeah, I'm into that. So we're going to explore that for December.
How does it feel? How do you feel about, like, do you feel like Everyday People kind of like set the new standard for like U.S. parties to travel to Africa and South Africa to, like, kind of create, like, open their markets up for them?
Yeah, I think, objectively, you can say that they weren't traveling black parties that kind of focused on this open format, mainstream Afro-Caribbean hip-hop R&B kind of thing before Everyday People. You could say objectively, we were the first party like that in the States. And then we created a template that a lot of other people used.
Right.
In the States, in Europe, in Africa. I meet people all the time who are like, yo, we came to Everyday People in 2013 when it was at the DL, the name of my party is based on the ethos of your party. And I'm not going to say the names of those people because obviously when they confide in you like that, it's very flattering and it's very rewarding. So I'm not out here trying to be like, yo, so-and-so bit our style. That's not what it is.
But a lot of people would kind of, they would see it that way. They would get defensive about it. You know what I mean?
It's not that. It's, in tech, they always say that bullshit thing about disruptors. We're trying to disrupt the market. That's the thing that they say in tech. Well, we kind of did that because, Goldie would tell you, in the 2000s and early 2010s, it was really hard for black people to get access to certain nightlife venues.
Yeah, of course.
Very hard. So we disrupted the market. We're like, well, fuck that. We're going to do some shit outdoors. We're going to do some shit in the daytime. And now, the vast majority of people in New York are going to independently run parties as opposed to going to a specific nightclub.
True.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we may have disrupted the market in that way, and in the process, we created a template.
Like decades prior.
Yeah, we created a template for other people to use, and I'm all with that because it's all young people of color. They're all enterprising. They're all making money. You got traveling Arab parties.
Yeah.
You got traveling LGBTQ plus parties.
Right.
You got traveling Latino, Latinx parties. And now everybody's eating. We mostly cut out the middleman. We mostly partner direct with ticketing platforms like Dice or Eventbrite or Posh, so on and so forth. So I don't consider it, biting. I think we found our own niche in the market, and then everybody else can exploit it.
Yeah.
What I think is maybe redundant is when, people try to book the same exact venue as you. When people try to book your hosts and your DJs and your dancers. I always want everybody to eat, but I would just encourage people to be just a bit more original, because then you're going to make it boring for everyone,
Right.
But the problem that you have now is that 10 years ago, the people who were throwing parties, at least that I was associated with, were DJs and nightlife promoters. Now you have people who go to business school, who conduct like case studies on everyday people and be like, well, here's how you can, attract such a demographic in such a city, and here's how you can price your ticket tiers, and here's how you can increase them over the certain term, and here's how you can add bottle packages, and here's how you can add travel packages, and there's like this whole like commodification of it, which comes from an MBA background.
Hey, yo, what's good? This is the R.O.A.D podcast, Reflections of a DJ. We're here in New York City, and we have invaded the Sound Collective. Now, I want to explain what the Sound Collective is. I got my man Lefty from the Sound Collective here. Lefty, thank you for having us and hosting this beautiful studio for us. Exactly what is the Sound Collective here in New York?
Modern, state-of-the-art facility with tons of production gear. And one side of it is you can be a member and you can come here and pay monthly to use the rooms and the gear and sign out time and our space. We have a state-of-the-art studio. We have all these production stations, DJ stations, instrument practicing rooms and such like that.
And you also teach. You have classes and sessions, right?
We have intensive programs, short-term programs that people can come and take Saturday classes on DJing, production.
There's like kind of a community building within where there's like DJs, producers, musicians.
Up and coming producers, people honing their craft and learning, and DJs and all these things. And they come here and practice, and we have all the new gear, so they come and check that out and get familiar. And a lot of DJs will come in from out of town, be like, let me get a day pass so I can just get a refresh on the 3000s and the V10.
And what's great is that a lot of our guests, everyone from like Clark Kent to the technician to like Camilo, they come in here and they're just like, holy shit.
I want to play with all the gear, man. Yeah.
I didn't even realize this, but you guys have like studio spaces where people can do live streams and they can do their Twitch streams.
Yep. We got a whole green screen set up already, multicam, full on switcher. Like, we also do a lot of events here. We're bringing a lot of outside talent, organizations. We got a big event coming up with DJ City, Beat Source, and Serato.
That's part of our family.
Yeah. We did a big one last year with them. We got another one coming up.
For our listeners, is there any way we could hook them up with a deal, or, you know, like if they put in a R.O.A.D podcast code?
Yeah, tell me about it. What else do you have envisioned for this deal? It sounds like we're well on our way. Why don't you tell them?
You're working with us where they can type in a code for like R.O.A.D.
Yep.
And they'll get a month free, right?
Yeah, on our online platform. We have a whole online platform with like masterclass style education.
Nice.
Different categories and everything, instruments, drums. And then we have these things that we're launching right now called Pro Paths. So you can choose, like if you're a producer, you can take the Ableton Pro Path, the Logic Pro Path, Serato Studio. Goes through a wide variety of knowledge besides just stuff in that skill set and discipline.
So our R.O.A.D listeners, if you're in New York, you can check out their facility. You can do a day pass, a week pass, a monthly pass. You can check out their site. You have access to all the education online.
Soundcollective.com. We also have a YouTube channel that has some of our content from the educational courses, and all of our events are live streamed and put up there.
I hope we can come back here and use your facilities again.
Looking forward to it.
Shout out to Lefty and the Sound Collective. Thank you so much.
It's not exactly what we do, but it might also explain why we're still around.
Right.
It might also, because I tell people on our team all the time, this party's been going on for 13 or 14 years. It's on 6 or 7 continents.
Which is unheard
Could it be
of.
the most successful party of all time, right?
Well, we can definitely say it's the biggest traveling party in the world. Wouldn't you say that? You would.
It has the largest footprint. Yeah, we're on 6 continents.
I mean, who's doing, like, you're doing South America, you're doing Brazil.
That's right.
It's crazy. And sometimes you're doing this shit just for the sake of the culture. Like, you're not trying to cake off in Brazil. Like, if you're lucky, maybe, I feel like everyone thinks you're caking off. And there's so many times where you will go to a country, or you'll go to a continent, or you'll go to a city just to open a market, just to like kind of see what's out there, and then like kind of do it for the sake of the culture of what you're doing. Yeah,
and it's funny that we just talked about MBAs and people in business, but that is like kind of like the capitalistic aspect of it. It's like capitalistic and the culture, right? You're going to establish your markets that are profitable. We make money in New York. We don't got to travel 10 people, to like 3 or 4 cities. Most of our team lives in New York. We're able to make money in LA as well. We have half our team travels from New York, but the other half of the team lives there. But if we're going to London, we're flying everybody over. If we're going to Johannesburg, Dubai, Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, we're flying everybody over. And
flights are more expensive now.
Crazy expensive, especially if you're trying to be in a upper cabin. It's not a game. But the point is, if you have a market that's successful, you have to be kind of smart enough to want to reinvest some of those returns. So when we first went to LA, we didn't make no money. You know what I mean?
Which is unheard of.
But we break it open.
But we saved some money from like what we were doing at the DL, and we bought flights for like 5 of us. And, we hit up the people at the Standard in Hollywood, the same people from the Standard in New York. And we threw an amazing party, and we figured out that, you know what? This community exists here as well, in a slightly different kind of like iteration, but it exists. But and you take that principle, you build LA, you make it successful, you have it, sustain itself, and then some, and then you can start thinking, let's do Miami, let's do Toronto, let's do Chicago, Houston, Paris, so on and so forth, Africa, Dubai, Brazil. So it's a delicate balance, right? If we only was looking at K-Cup, we would do New York 52 weeks a year. We would be rich.
Yeah.
Right? But then the brand would be dead. It would be uninteresting. It'd be redundant.
But I want to dive deeper into this because you're actually like flying to these countries and these cities and you're scouting locations. So in LA, no one was going to the Beehive.
I mean, there was a collective called the Black Market Flea.
Yeah.
Who was doing the Beehive, and that's how we got put onto the Beehive. But, it was like a flea market.
Yeah, it wasn't a party.
Vendors, and they had an element of a party.
Right.
They had some sort of a sound system, nothing robust. Like we came in, we saw the vision. We're like, ooh, the stage should go over there.
But it's in like South Central, right?
It's in South Central LA.
So like no one ever thinks to throw a party in South Central in LA. Like even LA locals were like, what? Like there's a party in South Central? Right. And they were like shocked. I remember Artistic was like, he thought like who would come from New York to throw like everyday people? Why would everyday people like a New York party come to LA and throw a party? They would normally throw it in Hollywood.
Right. Why
are they coming to South Central? Everyone's like, like this is not going to work. Like there's going to be a shootout. Some shit's going to happen. There's going to be some type. It's going to be chaos. And it literally set the standard for like a whole bunch of like parties to be thrown in different locations. Like you're taking a chance. You're flying out just to scout locations for the party.
That's right.
Which is already a loss in investment if it doesn't turn out.
Yeah, that's an investment. But it's also like a good investment. I think before we did Brazil, I flew to Salvador, Bahia. Sinclair flew to São Paulo.
Yeah.
And then on a separate weekend, I went back to Rio. So it was 3 separate trips. It's going to cost whatever it's going to cost with the flights and the hotels, bands. But we also weren't going to a work camp in Siberia, right? Like we were going to Bahia and Sao Paulo and Rio. So there's a return for us. And the whole point of Everyday People is we throw parties in our favorite cities. So if somebody has to go scout for a venue in Paris, you really don't got to twist their arm to do it. You know what I mean? It's just that we're not greedy. We've never been greedy.
Right. You are getting recon from like your people. They hit you up in the DMs. You all need to come here. It's the scene is here.
So much. And then oftentimes, we have people that we trust. Like if we know their nightlife pedigree, that they've thrown events or they've DJ'd really big parties, we'll have them do the walkthrough. Be like, you know what? We're not going to go to Berlin for this. Just pull up to the venue. Just let's get on a FaceTime with the venue management, and we'll ask all the questions right there and then. And then sometimes we luck out. We have some of our closest allies move to certain parts of the world, and then we work with them. So remember my boy Stimmy?
Yeah.
Stimmy, we started the Good Spot together, right? Stimmy moved to Berlin, and he's kind of based between Berlin and Lisbon. So we're adding Berlin back to the rotation this year, and we're also adding Lisbon for the first time. Yeah, so it made sense to ask Stimmy.
Yeah.
I want
DJ Stimulus.
Stimulus, sorry. Stimmy is affectionately known as Stimmy.
Yeah, shout to DJ Stimulus.
Stimulus, I asked him, obviously I want you to DJ the party. You're that guy in Berlin. You know a lot about Lisbon, but could you also partner with us in another capacity as kind of like a local event producer for us? And and it's just like, it's been great working with Stimmy. He comes up with a lineup, or he'll have a whole dossier on these are the DJs in Berlin, these are the DJs in Lisbon. This is the stuff that typically I would do based on my travels.
Recon.
I would do the recon from going places, Nairobi, Johannesburg, so on and so forth. But I didn't even have to do it this time because I haven't really DJ'd in Berlin in years. And I've never DJ'd in Lisbon, so to have Stimmy put together that recon was great.
But it's interesting because it's like when you do a recon, you realize what's missing too, because you're like, oh, this place needs more sound. So like when you would do like LA, the Beehive, the space itself is beautiful, it's perfect, but the sound is like it's not there.
I mean, it's a full build, man. It's a full build. The Beehive. You get the venue. We bring the bars, we bring the stage.
See, people don't know that. Sound. People don't know that.
We bring the picnic tables. We bring additional planters. We bring the porta potties.
Barricades.
Barricades. I think does security come with the venue? I think we bring security too.
But you have to bring additional security, right?
Yeah. It's a full build.
Yeah.
It's a full build.
So it's like
it's actually production.
I don't think people. I think people just think
Yeah,
it comes and it's like, oh yeah, we'll pay for that. But it's
that's
like
more impressive to me.
It is more impressive.
Production.
I mean, like when I talked to him, and I remember the first couple trips he went to LA after the pandemic, he fucking destroyed it. It was crazy. Like the whole city of LA was talking about it. And I was like, fam, you must have caked the fuck out. Like it was sold out. Like Saweetie was there. Everyone was there. He was like, yo, like we broke even. I'm like, how the fuck did you just break even? He's like, yo, I had to bring the sound equipment, the stage and everything. And I was like, it was what, to this day, it's like 100,000 or something.
I mean, it costs quite a bit to activate that venue the way we activate it. I don't know if it's $60,000, $70,000 plus the cost of our travel.
Crazy.
If it's like $15,000, $20,000 to get the team over, it costs a lot to activate
that
it.
sounds scary, doesn't it? For me, with the traveling party, it would be nerve-wracking to invest over $50,000 into like the whole sound building.
It meets the standard though. You know what I mean? It's not like,
there's no other way to do it, because if you cut corners, then you're going to have an inferior party and people are going to stop coming. I don't know. People still come to Everyday People 13 years later. I think it's because it's always a reliable experience. You're going to have a good sound, you're going to have a good crowd. People are going to look like they're having fun.
And you have a good team too, right?
A good team,
Great team.
Because, that's not like for like, I don't know, like to resource, like, to resource the barricade security, right? Bartenders, like all these little things, speakers, sound, technicians and everything like that.
You have to let
another city.
You have to let police know like you're going to be doing stuff like permits and all that good shit.
Some cities we do need permits. A lot of times the venue is the one that has the relationship with the police. And here's the one thing the police doesn't want. They don't want ambulances to pull up, and ambulances don't have to pull up for like sinister shit. They can just pull up because somebody's wasted, So we try to as much as possible to tell people to always look out for their friends. We have watering stations everywhere. We can just drink water, because if somebody's just wasted and an ambulance pulls up, that could kill your party.
Yeah.
Even if no crime occurred and that person ultimately is going to be fine,
the police have to come with the cops.
Don't want to show up.
Yeah, they have to come up.
Is there any city that's kind of an issue? Because you always kind of bring up like Art Basel in Miami, like something.
Well,
always
Art Basel
happens,
is
right?
that's just a victim of the gentrification.
But it always gets shut down a little early, or like they shut the door down, or something crazy happens, like because they're just not ready for the.
I don't know if we're being targeted in Miami. I don't think we are. But I think it's just a function of the gentrification. What we used to be able to do, and like in Wynwood or like Little Havana or whatever pre-COVID, it's totally different from now on.
Really?
Yeah.
Those neighborhoods have definitely changed though.
Yeah, they build all these luxury high rises, right?
A lot of the community is not really there anymore.
Yeah.
Because the economy has changed over there.
And I think they've kind of centralized all the traffic and all the parties. Is it Northwest 22nd or 23rd? The street that has Koyo Taco on it?
Yeah.
Right? So they kind of pushed everything there. And on even the adjacent like offshoots, like the one that has Lucky on it.
Yeah.
And they pretty much closed it and made it like pedestrian. You remember back in the day when like you had Bed and Stereo and all those clubs in West Chelsea? Yeah. Right, and the cops would close off those streets and more or less make them pedestrian. So that's what they do. That's where they like to keep all the parties and all the noise. When we were doing Oasis, which is closed now, RIP, I think it was a little too far off the beaten path, and the complaints was too much. So that's why that venue didn't survive. But man, we had a great run at Oasis. One of them got shut down. And it was about to be like historic. Yeah. And the second one didn't get shut down, and it ended up being historic.
How do you feel about like there's a ton of venues closing nowadays? Like there's all these articles coming out that like nightlife is dead, nightclubs are closing. Gen Z doesn't drink, and this and all this media is like doubling down, of course, since it's a trend to talk about like the dying culture of nightlife.
Yeah, I think people are broke And I think drinks are really expensive.
Yeah.
So I'm really
Rents.
not mad. I'm not
Rents
mad
are
at
really
people
expensive.
not drinking. People pregame, right? Everyone pregames. Pregaming is more popular than ever.
So you don't think it's a fact that Gen Z doesn't drink? You don't think that's the factor?
I think Gen Z is just not trying to spend $26 for a cocktail.
Yeah.
And nor should Gen X, for that matter, you know. But I think all this stuff, we're not future-proofed against it, but our business model right now is, you know, full venues for hire, whether it's a full build like the Beehive, or one of our best venues in the country is the Salt Shed in Chicago. 4,000 plus, grade A staging, sound, you know, lights, all the tech.
That's all included.
I mean, yeah, I think we pay for it to activate because it's all union workers or whatever. But that's our business model. Our business model is really selling the tickets, and the food and beverage usually is more for the venue, unless we're building the bar and we're, you know.
But you get percentages, right? On the beverages.
It depends. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. You know, venues have what they call a house nut. Pause. You know, that's the cost of like opening the venue.
Yeah.
It could be several stacks. You know, and then you tell them, listen, man, you've never worked with us before, but we're gonna ring astronomical numbers at your bar, right? So if we hit a certain benchmark, can you make that go away? Like, don't be greedy, right? If we beat your record for sales at a bar, especially when you go in a dance music venue where people do drugs and drink water, they don't usually ring that much at the bar. But our audience still predominantly likes to drink and smoke weed, you know, and the parties are packed. So we try to build in these incentives for us and for them.
Right. If we make over this minimum, we get a certain percentage. We should be rewarded for that.
Yeah,
Yes.
or you make this $5,000 fee go away.
Right.
Right.
It's, you know, it all washes out.
So Everyday People, just like it just launched its like schedule for 2025.
Yeah, we just dropped the schedule a couple weeks ago.
So you like typically you run the whole schedule for the whole year at the start of the year, pretty much. You're already planning for 2025. When do you, Maine and Sinclair and the whole team start planning the schedule for 2025?
We probably start in October.
Really?
Yeah.
Right when the season is closing.
Maybe even like September. Yeah. September, October, we start putting feelers out.
What is that?
There's no
What's feelers?
There's no like real scientific way to do it. Like, you know,
but there is a scientific
You know
way
how
to
like
do
the NBA has a supercomputer that comes up with the schedule?
No, I didn't.
Because no, you have to. How else could you come up with a schedule for 82 games?
Okay, got it.
For 30 teams. Some days they might have some sort of like Christmas show.
Right.
They have hockey teams. They have concerts. You actually need a supercomputer.
And they probably have AI helping with that now. Yeah.
Yeah. But we don't look at it like that. We try to figure out New York first. New York's our home. It's the anchor. How many events do we feel like doing in New York? What's the right number? How do we distribute them across the venues, right?
Do you ever feel like pulling back from New York or doubling down?
We have.
For what reason?
Redundancy. You know, it's basically like I said, if
That's the key word this episode.
Yeah,
redundancy.
If Everyday People is the only day party, then you should do as many as you can to give people the day parties that they need in the summer, right? But if there are now 7 or 8 other day parties in the same market, then there's no point. You're not the only one, you know, providing that service. You could keep your numbers up, but now you have to compete, right? And that means you cut your prices or you book like headlining talent. What's the point? Everybody can eat. You feel me? So we've done less parties over the past 2 summers. I think summer 2023, we may have had 15 parties in New York. 2024, we're maybe down to 13. And I think this year we're down to 11.
Now it's all about the new venues and breaking up new spots, or maybe giving different looks.
Yeah, so last year we did Pier 17, which is a 4,000 person venue.
Right.
You know, that alone is the revenue from like 2 or 3 events, right? And then this year we're also doing Brooklyn Mirage, which is 6,000 or 6,500 people.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah, so you're still trying to sell the same amount of tickets to the same amount of people, but in less installments. You know what I mean? Like a 6,500 person event, that should not count as one event. That's 3 parties, you know, but you're just consolidating them in one.
Interesting. Are you having meetings and like, kind of like, are you seeing the red flags of an oversaturated market of day parties?
I just feel it, man. You know,
but do you have to communicate that to your team? Like you've got to
we
communicate the red flags, let the team know, and then how to pivot and change the schedule for the next year.
Yeah, we do.
That's all a gut feeling that you have that you communicate to the rest of the team at some point.
I mean, it's not just me. I think, my partners, Maine and Sinclair, they feel it too. You know, they'll be like, maybe that was one too many. But then
do you start seeing it in the numbers, or you just kind of notice it on a feed or social media, or like from word of mouth, or what is it mostly?
No, it'll be like the numbers. It'll be like the numbers. I'll give you an example. I think we had 4 events in London last year.
Yeah.
And, June, July, and August sold out in an instant, right? And then September sold out, but at the last minute. And we were like, you know what? They don't really be outside in the UK in September. But then also, they got hella parties right now. They got DLT, Days Like This is killing it. Recess is killing it. They got 2 or 3 R&B parties that are doing really well. Then there's the new phenomenon, Culture FM, which is like, the TikTok-based DJ visual sets with the reactions and the people behind them. They're doing their own parties in the UK and internationally.
Or like the YouTube kind of channels, like Boiler Room style.
They're killing the game. So you kind of have to step back to be like, you know what? We could probably run the September one again. But if there's less appetite for it, and if all those other collectives are going to keep doing their thing, and they're going to keep growing, and they're going to keep innovating, maybe we should just do 3 in London this year. And it also relieves us of travel in September, where we can just keep it domestic. And that's precisely what we're doing this year. We're doing June, July, and August in London. We're not doing September. However, Chicago sold out in 24 hours.
So maybe you doubled up in Chicago, right?
And then we added another one, and it sold out in 24 hours.
Wow. Okay.
And now there's a wait list of like 16,000 people. So we have to be like, all right, do we feel like doing Chicago 3 times? Something we might have to consider.
Right.
If we sold out 3750 twice in 24 hours,
Yeah.
But we know that Everyday People Chicago is so special that it probably just ought to be twice. You know what I mean? So that's, like I said, that's the mixture of capitalism and culture. If you lose sight of the capitalism, where you just, growth for the sake of growth, as they say, that's the philosophy of a cancer cell, right? Reproduction for the sake of reproduction.
Right.
At some point, you're going to get some diminishing returns on the culture side of things, and then the people will vote against your party, one way or the other, right? It happens. People are talking shit about Coachella. When Afro punk got big, people started talking shit about Afro punk, and I think they weren't just growth for the sake of growth, but you have to just be very careful.
Right. It's interesting because, there's a lot of ego with any business or with anything that you're building. So the thinking of like pulling back to some business, like from a business perspective, is almost like retreating a little bit. But in your way, it's just kind of letting everybody eat and kind of like re-examining other markets and seeing what could open up and where you could like put more attention to in some sorts.
But maybe I'm also scarred, right?
How?
From like the 90s and the 2000s, right? Everything that we witnessed was promoters being greedy, driving up prices, and
Burning it down
and older DJs gatekeeping, not booking younger people. So that was always my philosophy.
We are like living representations of gatekeeping and like all our heroes like not even acknowledging our existences as DJs early on.
No, early on, I don't think they had any interest, I'm not even going to name names. It was the Hall of Fame lineup at APT, right?
Yeah.
From Monday through Wednesday to Friday, it was them. And they were booking each other as guest DJs, and maybe they knew what we were doing, or maybe they didn't. You know what I'm saying? Let's not get gassed. Maybe they didn't know what we were doing, but they weren't curious at all. You know?
Yeah.
They were not curious, and that's the one thing. Like, I try to be out. Obviously, we have the benefit of social media, where somebody could show me an Instagram post, and they can be like, "Yo, Las Flaquitas is killing it." I'm like, "Yeah, they're fire. Let's work with them."
Right.
You know, they didn't have that benefit.
That's our generation though, because we were kind of like, we weren't even welcomed. It was just kind of like, oh, look at these. Oh, they trying to do something over here, and it's kind of shit.
To be fair though, you guys have an ownership.
It's actually Goldie.
Really
It's Goldie's gen. You never mentored us, yo.
But Goldie's gen is different. Like, the thing is, I wouldn't be expecting Goldie back then to put me on. You know, I would think Goldie would have a selected.
I did a little bit of putting people on, and I saw that got me.
No, but I'm saying you might have
explain,
like,
Goldie. Explain, Goldie.
I'd rather not.
What happened, Goldie?
Listen, Goldie was like the designated hitter. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was booked for the biggest parties in the city. You know, and then they leverage his skill set and his network, right? But Goldie you didn't have to produce a lot of those parties yourself.
Yeah, but we didn't have the same type of ownership you guys have with your party. Your party is like pretty much self-contained.
Right.
You know, you pretty much get the venue, you run it how you want to. We were still working with the system, you know, with the booking.
Facts.
You know what I mean? So,
but again, I'm not talking about Goldie's side of things, you know, because I think of what Goldie was doing.
It was the generation before Goldie?
No, it was there was a generation. It's hard to do without naming names. There was a generation, there was a generation in parallel of Goldie.
Yeah, but we don't feel any type of way about it. Like,
no,
we're not angry about it.
No, we don't.
No,
we don't.
And the thing is, we never expected it. Right?
We don't. What I'm saying is that they were our heroes, right? And we watched the stagnation happen, right?
Yeah.
For them. Because at some point, there was no renewal in their scene, in their parties, sonically. And so, like, man, I like to learn from other people's mistakes as much as my own, right? And the one thing that I thought, I was like, all right, on the nightlife side of things, and that was in your world, these guys are price gouging, right? And then on the culture side of things, I was like, these guys are gatekeeping.
Yeah. And
I was like, so those are the two principles that I'm going to stay away from. Try to make it affordable. I mean, listen, sometimes the party is like $40 or $45, but there's parties that offer a lot less from a production standpoint and from a talent standpoint that are charging $60 or $75. There are people out there wilding out, you know, but we try to provide, like, you know, sound system, the lighting, the dancers, the host, 5 or 6 world-class DJs at times.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily cheap, but we try to keep it in a zone where it's affordable, where we're not price gouging.
What's the standard price for everyday people right now? You
know, it's between 30 and 40.
Yeah.
And then the ticketing platforms add their fees, which could be another $5 or $6. And then sometimes you got ticketing platforms who get on Eventbrite on one of those, then they have like crazy fees, you know? We work with Dice very closely, and this is not like an ad or anything, you know? We work with Dice. They have some of the best fees in the industry. So if you get like a $30 ticket with Dice, it ends up being $34 or something like that.
Dice is the motherfuckers that bought Boiler Room, right?
And sold it already.
So they did sell it.
Yeah.
Oh, they couldn't make money off of that shit.
I don't know, man.
Okay.
No comment.
But yeah, Dice is killing it. You have a good Actually, you're one of the highest grossing motherfuckers on Dice, right?
I think so, yeah. We certainly we're one of the platforms that has the most followers on their network. I mean, we started with them like right out the gate when they came out, you know? We've been working with them for years. And then sometimes we bring them accounts. We bring them venues. We bring them independent parties. You know, I'll be seeing homies using like some janky ticket platforms. And I'm like, nah, man, this joint's fugazi. Go with Dice. You get this, that, and the third. And depending on the size of your party, they might incentivize you by giving you money up front, wherein they know they're going to recoup that on the ticketing fees.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Is there any new markets, new cities that you're going to hit with everyday people this year?
In North America, no.
No.
We're still New York, Miami, Houston, Chicago, LA, Toronto, Atlanta.
Houston was kind of new, right? Last year?
Yeah, Houston, I think it's third year in Houston. For
Third
us
year?
now. Yeah.
Have you been getting requests from any places that's like,
Yeah,
you gotta come
a
here?
lot of requests.
What's
you
the
know?
biggest request right now?
Man, it's basically once you handle a certain city and it's on the map, it's no longer a request.
Right.
But before we went to Chicago and before we went to Houston, it was definitely, and now we had been to Chicago in 2015 or 2016. We just hadn't been for a while. So Chicago and Houston was always the loudest. Now the venues, I mean the cities that they're in the comments the most, it's Dallas, it's the Bay, it's Philly. Sometimes it's New Orleans, but yeah, Dallas, the Bay, Philly.
I feel like the Bay would be good.
The Bay would be great, I think, but it's a venue game, you know? Everything's a venue game. We didn't go back to Chicago until we found the perfect venue, you know?
Now, does each city like understand what they're getting? Because I know people can request, oh, that looks like fun, or they watch the IG, but do they know that they're gonna get like that whole experience?
You know what? I don't know if they're consciously aware of it, but I think we ended up doing a good job of giving it to them, especially because we have like a global vision. So I'll just take the Chicago party, for instance.
Yeah.
Chicago party, it's not the DJ Moma show, you know? I do my set in the early part of prime time, just so I can be like, guys, this is a international diaspora type of party. I got to play some Afro beats. I got to play some Amapiano.
Yeah.
Just to establish that, you know? But we know why y'all are here. Y'all are here because you want to hear Chicago anthems, you know? Juke, Footwork, Chief Keef, you know, house classics. And then around 8 o'clock, earlier than usual, we cede it to them. And we let their DJs go crazy. And it's insane, right? But if you look at London, for instance, London could be the DJ Moma show until 9, which if the party ends at 10, and then the last DJ, I'd be like, yo, do your thing, but just play all the UK anthems, you know? give me that talking the hardest. Give me that pow. Give me all that too many men.
Give me
here.
those deep local regional cuts that I wouldn't know. Right?
Well, no, I do know them.
Yeah.
But I'd rather have somebody local play them. You know,
who's like gonna play it like it's like
yeah, and then just do that for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's gonna help you out because it's gonna reset the party. It's gonna bring a whole new energy. It's gonna remind people that we are in London, that we are in Chicago, that this is our home turf first and foremost. And then after that, you can do whatever you want. And I've had DJs try to do their own take on that, where I was like, yo, just get on and give me the UK classics. And they were just like, well, I kind of want to establish myself for 15, 20 minutes. And I was like, it's 9 o'clock. I've been shelling like crazy. We just played Sexy Red. We just played Soca. We just played Uzi. Don't get too sexy right now. Did a 15 to 20 minute UK house set, not necessarily the classics. Lost half the room. 50% of the room left because they figured the party was over. So, you know, the parties, they hang on these little details. And that's a thing that I think a lot of younger DJs don't realize, how delicate it is. Yeah, anything can happen early on in the party. It's not going to have, but there are critical moments in the party, especially after like a big dose of prime time.
Yeah,
make or break.
Yeah, it's make or break. You have to be surgical with it. And next thing you know, we're going for an extra 2 hours. We're hitting all the bar minimums.
Yeah. So how do you work on like preparing yourself to get ready for everyday people? Getting your hip hop or like, you know, your open format chops back on track?
I probably do like one or two things. I kind of save my sets as far as the playlist is concerned.
Yeah.
In Serato. So I'll be like, when was I at my sharpest? And it's always Art Basel Miami. Because it's always the last gig of the year.
In December.
It's December.
So literally from April.
From April to December.
Yeah, but you're sharper. Like by June or July, I usually like talk to you. You're like, yo, fam, I'm right there.
By July, I'm usually good.
Yeah.
By July, I'm good. Because the thing is, what we do is we improvise to a certain extent. You know, we have some certain routines that we do over and over.
Yeah.
But overall, we kind of assess the crowd and we assess what needs to be done. And you can't have that brain fog, not at that moment, right? It's too important. You got to have clarity. You got to know what you're doing for the next 3 to 4 to 5, 6 records if you're quick mixing to a certain extent.
You know, I don't think a lot of DJs do that. I was just talking with
You could tell.
with Goldie about that.
You can tell.
You know that free ball, like where you're like kind of like at a certain time of the night where you're just like you're not doing any routines and you're just going off for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, where you're just playing like off the dome. Just
Yeah.
like I don't think DJs understand that art anymore. It's like everyone's talking about like, well, like if I prepare this, I'll be ready for this. But it's like, do you ever have a point in your sets where you're just kind of just flowing with it?
Yeah, for sure. And that every single time you do the long sets,
Yeah.
100%.
But I don't think the younger generation or like
So
newer
one
DJs
thing
have
that is really underrated with the long sets is that you could spend 3 hours preparing for a set, right? Looking at your Serato, looking at your computer crates. But if you've been DJing for 3 hours, you've low-key been doing that already.
Right.
So by the time you get to that 4th hour, like you've seen so many songs because you've been scanning all night, and then everything just starts to come to you. And it comes that much quicker. It gives you even more time to think about the next song. It gives you more time to like improvise, to try things you've never done. You have more like exit strategies if something doesn't pan out.
Yeah.
So when you do the long set, after a while, you're killing it and you feel comfortable and you feel confident and the crowd is responding to everything you're doing. Then you can really just do shit you've never done before.
Yeah. Sometimes when I go through music, I'm just literally reminding myself of music. Like
Yeah.
I'll spend 2 to 3 hours going through crates and going through all these songs, but I'm just trying to remind myself that these songs, I need to have these songs like at arm's reach in my head mentally. And sometimes we just forget it.
We just forget. I mean, listen, we've had this discussion to death. We need searchable crates in Serato. That would change absolutely everything because I have thousands of crates. I'm convinced I have thousands of crates and sub crates. To this day, I still remember doing Maxwell's birthday party in 2006. Or was it an event that he hosted? I just remember Maxwell popping up. Bevy Smith from Harlem was hosting it. And I think she booked me. And I always think about that set. Like I was so in the zone. I had everybody going. And I can't find it in my Serato. I just can't find it. But if I had the searchable
What year was that? What year
it was
was that?
2006.
2006. Almost 20 years ago.
I can't find it. I was killing it. I remember playing a lot of Raphael Sadiq. I was just in the zone, you know?
Yeah. So you don't want to do the headline kind of prime time at Everyday People no more. You really want to kind of focus on this early Amapiano kind of.
I think in certain cities that are like less Afro-Caribbean, where I'm naturally going to be less interested in the hip hop and R&B of the moment. I think it's better to kind of share the prime time with someone else who can kind of interpret it in their own way.
Because it feels a little like paint by numbers to you right now?
A little.
Yeah.
A little. It's a little stale. And I'm at a point where, you know, I don't know, I'm obviously 20 plus years, 24 years in my DJ career or something like that, you know, that I need something to really like inspire me and motivate me.
I think the production's going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving the production, and I'm also still loving, you know, everything that I'm doing on Wednesdays at Dance Dance Dance. You know, it's just I DJ'd the other night, the whole night, and I was like, wow, I played 90% songs from the past 12 months. You know, and then I compare that to like, you know, Everyday People, which this is no knock on dance hall, but if you play like a peak 2010 dance hall set, it's gonna shell any party right now. You know, Vibes Cartel, Summertime. If you want to go old, if you want to play Sarani, if you want to play the Diwali rhythm. And so I don't want to be in a position where I'm like turning my nose up at that stuff, you know, because it still needs to be played. And so if there's somebody who has more excitement than me to figure out how to interpret those songs and deliver them in a way that's going to hit, I think it's going to be great for everyday people, you know?
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you're ever going to step away from playing or DJing everyday people?
I think so, yeah. I
really?
think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. What a sad...
No, but I
what
think,
a sad thing to say.
But I think the party could go on.
Yeah.
I don't think, and this is not like tooting my own horn, I don't think there's anyone who could do the kind of set that I do at Everyday People that touches on everything in a way that makes sense.
Right.
Right? But I also don't think
it needs to be you.
It needs to be, I don't think that set is required anymore, you know?
Why do you say that?
Because you see what's going on TikTok. You see what people, you know, conceive to be great DJing, right? And it'd be like extremely basic transitions, you know? Some of the most basic blends of all time. And people are going off in the comment section. Like, oh my God, I need to be at that party.
Fire
oh my
emoji,
God.
fire emoji.
Yeah, where do you DJ? And I'm like, what's the point? We're almost overqualified, you know, trying to reinterpret all this old music in these really technically kind of difficult ways, doing it in real time, improvising, having it sound good, having it make. What's the point? You know?
I think it's still a very big value of you doing a party and opening up different territories. Because I think as the music evolves, even with your production and stuff of that nature, I think it's more important that you are the visionary that kind of brings it and introduces it.
I mean, I agree, but I feel like I've done a lot of that already, you know? And at some point, I just might not want to have to, like, worry about it for the entire summer. Like, I might want to be like, you know what? This year, I don't want to have to wait for December to go to South Africa, you know? I might want to spend the whole month of September there, you know, and cook. And then people are going to be like, but what about Everyday People London? And what about Everyday People Toronto? And what about, you know? So at some point, but the good thing is that in the pipeline, there's some excellent DJs in our set. And, you know, I'm always kind of like biased. I think, you know, the best DJs are from New York because they tend to understand the most amount of sounds, you know. The other place that's kind of like New York is London, where they also really understand a lot of different sounds, but there's a lot more train wrecking going on over there, you know. But
I did not know that.
Yeah, people like Millhouse, you know, people like Showcase, you know, there's a lot of really quality DJs who could, by committee, kind of take over the headlining role. Bo and K Meta, you know, obviously out of DC. I didn't go to Everyday People Dubai last year. They filled in for me. Everybody said this was the best Everyday People Dubai of all time or whatever.
That shit doesn't hurt you at all? That
no.
You weren't a part of it?
Not at all. Not at all. Because, you know, that's the whole point. Like, you gotta eliminate key man dependency.
Yeah.
You know? But if I walk out of here and get hit by a bus, party done, that would be sad. And in many ways, it would be sad, you know?
Yeah.
But really, that's the whole thing. Like, I want people to not think about me at the party. I want people to not text me, yo, where you at? This party's whack. I'm like, what do you mean it's whack, right? And now I'm stressing. And I'm texting Sinclair in Maine, like, yo, what's going on in DC? They're telling me it's whack. And they were like, nah, so-and-so is killing it. And you'd be like, all right, well, that person that texted me just had a bias, right? Because I wasn't there. And I'm kind of part of their experience, their enjoyment.
Right,
they're used to seeing me. But that's still whack, because if you're telling me that the party's whack, I'm still invested in Everyday People, you know? All the DJs that I put up there, I have a lot of trust and I have a lot of faith in them.
That's not the thing to say. That's not the thing to text you, right? When you're not there.
No, because you're stressing me.
Yeah.
Just be like, oh, the party. And some people text me like, yo, it's going off right now. It's not the same without you, but it's going off. I'm like, you know what?
Oh, that's a better way of saying
I like that.
That's a way better.
I appreciate that.
It's funny, we always talk about like the 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, 20-year approach to a business.
Yeah.
Right? First 5 years you build it. You want it to be like in the black. You want it to make money the first 5 years. Then you're establishing yourself. The 10-year mark is what?
Expansion.
expansion,
Probably
right?
expansion, yeah.
The 15-year mark is a certain, what would you call the 15-year mark?
Legacy.
It's like it's legacy and maybe flipping it.
Flipping it.
But before you flip it, you got to cement the legacy.
But in the midst of cementing the legacy, you have to kind of see who you're going to pass the torch to from 15 to 20 years, a little bit, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. So
Indeed.
it's kind of the way to see the 20-year span of your input on a business to a certain degree, and you're kind of following that a little bit. Like not
but a
even
big part of that is, there's an assumption that you want the business to continue. You might not want it to continue. Maybe it just has a nice arc, right? And then when it's done after 20 or so years, just retire it.
You've always been good about knowing when to stop.
Yeah.
You've been fearless about pulling the plug or stepping away.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Remember, I was talking about like the OGs and the people before us.
Yeah.
And I was saying on the nightlife side, they were price gouging, and on the culture side, they were gatekeeping. There was also another thing. There were certain collectives or parties that kept it going for too long. And they used to always be like, wow, 5-year anniversary. That's impressive, but maybe you shouldn't celebrate another anniversary. Because then you do 10-year anniversary, and then people are like, wow, it's been 10 years. And they almost have their life flashing in front of their eyes. That's not a good thing for your brand. It's actually not a good thing.
Really?
Nah.
You've always
because
said this,
then you see them in the comments, and then they start like, man, we look so young, yada, 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 yada. And it just...
Buyer's remorse.
Yeah, and it reminds them of where they are now. And then the worst one is 15-year anniversary. That just don't do a 50. You could do reunions. Reunions are different, right? Like this is a Soul Summit reunion. This is a Paradise Garage reunion. This, that. The 15-year anniversary is essentially the final nail in your coffin. Because people are like, 15 years? Wow. Like, this thing has been going on forever. And that's not a good thing for your party.
That's why you don't do any.
We don't do anniversaries for everyday people.
Yeah.
We want people to identify the party with the crowd, with the audience. We don't put DJs on the flyers or anything like that. And as long as the audience is young and vibrant, and that's what people identify with, that's most likely who's going to attend the party. And you could conceivably keep it going forever. I don't want to keep it going forever, but you probably could.
You don't personally want to be keeping it going forever.
I don't.
But it could go on forever.
It could.
Outside of your hands.
It could. But if, let's just say you remove me and Sinclair and Maine and Gito and Sada, and you kind of pass it on in almost some sort of like, like franchise kind of way.
Yeah.
The quality is going to go down. It has to. Because the entire party is based on our personal touch and the way we build community. All of it. There's no celebrities. There's no headliner performers. There's barely any celebrity DJs. But it's like
there's
no gimmicks.
But it's like Chanel. Chanel just keeps going.
But Chanel is a luxury good.
Yeah. You don't think? I mean,
we're not a luxury good.
No, it doesn't.
We're a boutique, but we're not luxury.
I don't think it's about a luxury good. I think it's a product.
Quality.
Yeah, it's the quality. It's the when people hold Chanel up to a certain standard, it is the highest standard of everyone.
Listen, I can't speak on fashion much, but I'm assuming if somebody was running Chanel until the 60s and then they wanted to pass it on to somebody in the 70s, they might bring in the best designers, and maybe they bring in the next creative director, and these people are able to uphold what Chanel is.
But how do they uphold it? But how a creative director revisits anything is they always look at the origin of any brand, of anything, and they maintain the authenticity, the aesthetic of the origin, and they continue it, and they maybe reinvent certain things, but it's always about keeping it to the essence of what it was. If that makes any sense.
I agree, but it's just too many different data points with everyday people. It's too many. You know?
Explain.
For instance, I'm in South Africa with my boy Vaughn, who runs Rockin' the Daisies Festival over there. And we have a session with his artist, Lord Kez. She's super dope. Look her up, Lord Kez, soulful R&B artist.
Yeah.
And, you know, we start working on a track and it's vibes. And then Vaughn is like, yo, what's your Europe dates? What's your LA dates? I might bring Kez. I'm like, bet it. I shared a calendar with him. And he's like, maybe we'll do this one or that one. I said, no, actually, you should do those two because I'm going to be there, right? That's a connection that unless I'm in South Africa physically in that moment with these two artists, that connection doesn't happen. You know what I mean? And if you remove me from the equation, what Maine is doing, what Gito is doing, you know, maybe what the dancers are doing, like Hooli dancing at Red Bull in India and Brazil, all of these things, they kind of come back into the pot of what Everyday People is. And it kind of creates this global community, you know? And I think like ultimately, if you remove us, whether we age out or we retire or whatever, it's not going to be the same. Am I saying that the day I'm done with it, I want to dead it? Nah, I don't think so, because it's bigger than me, you know? But I'll probably give it 5 years to see if it can sustain itself or if culturally it becomes whack, you know?
You ever thought about throwing another party?
Nah, I think I'm kind of done with like nightlife or day life, you know, properties. Between, you know, Everyday People, Dance. Before that, we had the Fridays at Rooster for 5 years. We had, you know, the Good Spot Mondays for 3 years. We've done so many parties, and I think we've almost perfected it with Everyday People and with Dance, that I'm not interested. One is completely decentralized, so I don't have to worry about venues and the headaches of specific venues. We go where we want. People just follow the name. And one is centralized in the best venue in New York, you know, at Lebain, with the best ownership, the best management, people who are 100% for the culture, right? So when I venture out of these two comfort zones, it's like the Wild West for me. You know, I don't know if I want to deal with it again.
Is it the DJing stuff that you maybe going away from? Or is it the production stuff that you want to kind of like just dive into? Or is it just something, another spark?
I think it's my time, man. I'm just the only, like, you know, DJing is not just, oh, that was a 2-hour set. No, you got to get there. You know, you got to rest before the gig. Right. If you're doing vinyl, you actually got to prepare a crate. If you're headlining an event, you also got to prepare a digital crate. It's, you know, a car there. It's coming home. It's like, you know, going to sleep at like 4 or 5 in the morning. And now it's waking up at like 10 or 11. Half the day is done. And that's really, it was a 2-hour set, but this is probably like a 13 to 14-hour window of stuff that I think I could be doing other stuff with that time.
I think it's an itch that he has to get out with the production. This is what I'm just getting from it. Because, you know, like we talked to Mark, and then Mark is like so excited about DJing again on vinyl. For you know, that's crazy to me. But he just seems like he just been hit a reset button. And maybe I think that the production is your reset button.
I think so. But, you know, honestly, more than the production, we didn't talk about it, is the jazz piano. That's what I'm really passionate about. You know, like if you come to my crib, my YouTube algorithm is ridiculous. It's just all like jazz piano and, you know, how to utilize a pentatonic scale for this, how to, you know, passing chords. Some stuff I understand, some stuff is like more advanced for me. But my whole thing from being a youth and like breakdancing and rapping into DJing, it's always been a connection with music. I just want to be able to touch music, you know? And I think at every step of the way, I get closer and closer to it. And with the jazz piano, I feel like I'm deeply immersed in the music. And, you know, and the next phase, sometime I'm thinking about it, I was like, maybe I should lay some vocals on this, you know? I'm like, oh, maybe I got to like start singing on these records, you know? So that's what's drawing me.
Getting excited.
It's
like talking about it. I see,
it's magnetic.
I see the IG. Yeah. Like you're really like immersed in this shit.
It's
so
magnetic. It's drawing me. You know what I mean?
That's dope, yo. That's really dope.
But I don't want to be like too cynical. Like, I love the parties. I love Everyday People. But, you know, before I started Everyday People, I was fully in corporate. I was in corporate America for like 12, 15 years. And I remember my partner, Sada, was like, Mo, what should we do with Everyday People? And I told her, listen, I'm going to quit corporate and we'll see where it goes. I'm going to pour my all into it. And, you know, we have a great proof of concept, you know, 11 years later. Mm-hmm. But I feel like Everyday People, just like the way corporate kind of bankrolled my passion so that it could live on its own too, Everyday People can sustain my music passion until it lives on its own too. Mm. And then if that really takes off to some place where it takes all my time, then you'll definitely have to hand off the reins for Everyday People.
Yeah.
Whether it's from a management standpoint, whether it's from a DJing standpoint, you know, I'm not good. I'm looking now at the calendar. I'm like, damn, it's like 40 dates or something like that. I'm trying to cancel some, you know?
Yeah.
I haven't told my team yet. I was like, I'm trying to cancel this one or that one to kind of create 18 days off so I can work on music. Because that's another thing for me that's a struggle. It's traveling and working on music.
Are you seeing a definitive change in what's going on right now and what's registering to, like, I would say maybe more so like the young crowds or Gen Z crowds?
You mean like musically?
Well, yeah, just even like the emergence of like the boiler room kind of style, like a club 1-bedroom kind of style, like YouTube sets that are like, who are throwing their own events now.
You know, I haven't really attended any of those parties.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
I've seen the YouTubes and the TikToks and the whole reaction thing. The reaction is a big deal, right? So I don't know how that translates to parties in real life. You would have to put that entire audience behind the DJ in real life, which then becomes like a boiler room kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So,
well, that concept is like,
so it kind of already exists.
Yeah,
you know,
the concept is like it's from boiler room, but it's like, how can we create our own boiler room on a like, you know?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I love it. It's just like we started day parties and other people started day parties too. Boiler room popularized that concept
that formula,
and now people are using it. And if I could do it like Apartment Life, right? Club 1-bedroom, Culture FM. Culture FM doesn't appear to be inside of an apartment. It's more like, you know, like a mini stage show or a big stage show, depending on what they're doing. There's a few more, and I think people are.
There's a ton more.
I think people are into that, but the problem with that, the same way that I was talking about saturation with the day parties,
right?
You know, 11, 13 years after we started, I started to feel the saturation.
Yeah.
That world is going to experience that saturation much quicker. They're going to experience it now.
Yeah.
We're probably living in the saturation moment of that, you know?
Yeah.
Because how do you recreate these reactions over and over?
It's easily duplicated, right? It's kind of like in EDM and house music, there's these like coffee raves where there's like completely sober, like coffee raves, like there's house music, big house music DJs at these like coffee shops, like DJing these raves. And I think it started in New York or London, and it's like now it's everywhere. It's like huge in LA.
Pizza shops.
Yeah, they're doing pizza shops, they're doing everything, and they're like, you know, the media's hopping on it like, oh, this is the new trend, but it's already kind of like they're trying to do this in like other cities. Like I think there was one in Toronto or something, and it didn't go over well, but they're just hopping on the concept, and it's already becoming a played out thing because. Yeah.
Well, no, but listen, the barrier to entry is low.
Yeah.
Right? If essentially you need any kind of setup and a couple dozen people and a front facing camera, then that barrier to entry is really low. It's actually a lot lower than what Boiler Room is doing, right? Boiler Room is throwing an actual rave. They're just putting 200 people behind the DJ. But in front of the DJ, you got 1,000 people. Mm-hmm. That's what Boiler Room is doing right now. They're selling tickets. So I think maybe the novelty of the little joints is going to wear off, but people are always going to want to be with a lot of people. There's always going to be raves.
Right.
There's always going to be big day parties like Everyday People. So, for the small joints, I don't know. Maybe they just become like radio stations, and that's how people consume their music. Turn on to Apartment Life. That's how I like to consume my music. It's a cool setting. It's cool DJs. They play good music, but does it necessarily have the substance to be like a viable, party or travel? I don't know.
I want to deep dive into it because I don't know enough about it. Like, I know they're not making money off of the YouTube monetization because they're playing a bunch of songs that, are copywritten.
Right.
So how are they making money? Are they getting sponsors? But I don't see any sponsorships. So the only way they make money is with events. So when you look at a Boiler Room who's been around for how long? Over 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Even that's hard to sustain. Boiler Room, which is like the fucking...
But Boiler Room is selling tickets now, right?
They've been selling tickets, but
yeah.
they're still not... I heard they're still not making money. Like, that's why Dice... Well, that's the rumor is that that's why Dice sold it. Because...
whether or not it's profitable, that we can speculate on that. We don't know.
We don't know.
But there's also like the
It's like
data. The data has a value.
The engagement and all
There's
that good
the
stuff.
engagement has a value. There's all these other metrics.
It's the marketing.
Yeah, there's
and
all
the
these
data.
other metrics with Boiler Room, Because Boiler Room is no longer moms and pops, right? If you're like one of these reaction video type of parties and you go on the road and you start selling tickets, you're going to find out very quickly whether you're profitable, whether you break even or not, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to determine if you keep doing that or not. You'll know within 1 year, right? I think with Boiler Room, because it's leveraged and it's a much bigger thing and there's all this data and there's hedge funds involved, if it's running a $10 million loss per year, it still could be a good business, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the funny thing is, like, I think it's like entertaining, like watching these YouTube videos, like the reactions and even the way it's edited for TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
I think it's fun. Like, it's not something I would want to do. Like, I wouldn't want to DJ.
Yeah.
Any
I
of
think
these sets.
a few people have hit me to DJ and I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I said, I don't want to do it because it's so performative, which is not a bad word, right? Performative is not a bad word. People nowadays, they really want to see the DJ being involved. They want to see the DJ being really engaged, right? Because that's a reflection of their enjoyment. And there's a lot of DJs who are very expressive and they get the crowd into it and they dance. You saw Flygerian's set on Culture FM.
No.
If you haven't seen it, you should peep it. Fly put on a show.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It's worth the price of admission, right?
Yeah.
But I'm in a different zone. I got 4 CDJs running. I'm doing trigonometry in real time. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have time. Yeah. My gratification comes from like being able to pull off what I want to pull off in real time. That's always been my gratification. And if it sounds good and the crowd responds, deep down, I'm buzzing, right? But it's not really going to show in my face. So if you're not super expressive, if you're not like air drumming to Amapiano, if you're not going in front of the crowd and doing a choreography like Waffles, I just don't think I would add much value to those types of sets.
I think the younger gen is they're not doing exactly what you're doing, but I think they're just trained earlier on to be more performative. So it's like, it's very different from us. We were, for us, we really had to just read the room, play to the crowd. There was a million things going on with like pulling records, and then with Serato, there was all kinds of things going on.
Bro, we were up ship's ladders, right?
We were like hauling crates of records.
Up ladders. Nobody knew where the DJ was.
Yeah, we were trying to stabilize turntables. We were trying to take dust balls off of vinyl. We weren't trained early on to be performative. I think it's a benefit to these younger DJs to kind of put that into the mix and to become performative. But I mean, that alone is not sustainable.
The risks are not there. It's not the same risk as we kind of had to deal with coming up.
It's different.
It's very different.
Listen, I think one thing that we had to
But
deal with.
But I like it.
No, one thing that we had to deal with coming up was, and it sounds corny, but being part of a fraternity of DJs, there was enough gratification in that, you know?
Yeah.
You went to your gig, you killed it, then you were done with your gig, maybe you linked up with homies late night, maybe you talked about your gigs. It was only but a handful of DJs in the city. I remember, because if you had a gig somewhere fire and you got booked somewhere nicer, you'd have Sean Perry cover for you, right? And then Sean Perry would have call me to cover for him, and then I would call, it was like musical chairs, right? Everybody was working, and just being part of that fraternity was extremely rewarding, the experience. Nowadays, DJing is not rewarding unless you're lit, right? It's not rewarding unless you got the followers, unless people know who you are, unless you're getting that boiler room set, unless you win that DJ competition. So, you know, DJs are coming into the game and they're trying to put all their tools in their arsenal so they could succeed, right? If 20 years ago, people were like, yo, when you play MC Hammer, you can't touch this. You got to come and do the choreography in front of the stage. Or, or Goldie's taking your gigs because he's doing it at Club New York. I'd be like,
baggy pants included.
Damn, I got to put on my baggy pants, We didn't have to worry about being outperformed. We only had to worry about being out DJ'd, which is a totally different thing,
How do you stay on top of like your self-promotion? Because me and Goldie were talking earlier, and we're horrible at self-promotion.
Horrible.
Listen, I think there was a period where I was establishing myself where, I would do quite a bit on social media.
Yeah.
But I think now it's more like centralized. I do an email blast and a calendar drop every month or two.
You're pulling back a little.
Yeah, because again, you don't want to saturate yourself. Redundancy and saturation are the key words for today's tech talk, right? It's redundant. Like people know how to find you, and if you are DJing at LeBain on a Wednesday, the beauty is LeBain is dropping their weekly calendar on Monday. So they're already putting it through their network. Or if I'm doing Deluxe Flux on Saturday, Deluxe Flux is doing a post on Tuesday about the party.
Yeah.
So what I have to do is I have to figure out the optimal time to kind of gather all these different events and put them in one calendar and then share it with the people.
Yeah. And
maybe accompany it with an email blast or like a website updates that has all the links. I'll tell you a little story. I was in Zanzibar a couple months ago. One of my homegirls is like a performance coach, kind of marketing expert. And she was like, who does your email blasts for you? I was like, I do them myself. She was like, no fucking way. I teach them to my students. You get straight to the point. And I'm there, I'm like nerding out with her. I was like, thank you. I don't want there to be too much fluff in it, right? I open with like a little introductory paragraph. Hey guys, we're going to Brazil. We're doing this, we're doing that. We got Central Park, really big ticket items. And then below it, there's every event listed with a link to buy the tickets. And then if you want to keep scrolling down, there's all the pretty flyers. And there's, maybe some recap videos from Everyday People at Dance, Dance, Dance. And I think people really value being able to find all the information in one place. I almost should have an app, but that to me just seems a little
You're saying you almost need an app to what?
I almost could have a DJ Moma app that had all the events,
Oh, you saying?
But that's a little obnoxious. Like I wouldn't do it. It's a little obnoxious. But there's enough people who look up my events, read my email blast. I get all the metrics.
Right. It's funny because everything we see on social media is to post more. And I'm trying to keep posting.
I've been posting less and less and less.
Yeah. I've been noticing everyone who's posting more and more, it almost seems like an old approach of like something that would have been more relevant 5 years ago to continuously post. I think there's just too much going on.
It's too, but they're being tricked. They're being tricked by Instagram, which is competing with TikTok.
Yeah.
Which is telling you in order to move up the algorithm, you got to post more.
Yeah.
Because they're just trying to get traffic back from TikTok.
Yeah.
So it's not really in your interest. I mean, another word that we can use, right? We've been talking about redundancy and saturation. Dilution is another word, you know? Everybody's posting more and everybody's diluting all of it together at the same time.
But it's knowing when to stop. I feel like if you're like up and coming and you're trying to build your audience, I could understand you posting every day. But once you've built an audience and you're sustained, you have to know when to pull back and not post as much. Like there's certain DJs or producers or artists, I'm like, yo, you're at this like high level.
Yeah.
Why are you posting so much? It looks desperate. You know what I mean? It's like you've already hit this level. Now you can be a little bit more thoughtful on what you're posting. And it's almost like now I'm seeing their posts and I'm like, why are you posting so much? And this isn't even like top tier, high quality, like content. This is almost making you look like I when I see their posts, I'm like
you looked up a little bit.
There's a desperation to be like, oh, if I don't post anything this week, I'm gonna fall.
I think it's a survival instinct because they see the younger DJs coming up under them and they see how much they post.
Right.
And they see, you know, Reels going viral and TikToks going viral. And as far as they're concerned, I think they're worried about those DJs potentially taking their place. So they're trying to keep up with them. I think we're like a couple of generations removed where we don't see that activity, you know, firsthand. So as far as we're concerned, we're just like, man, I got to post more on Instagram, but we're not thinking we got to come up with Reels daily and animate everything and have captions for everything. And
You also got to think that the algorithm is a lot different from our age and who we're targeting and who's going to see our stuff than they are because they're younger. So it's a different sway of people that you have that follow you, that are interested. Stuff that you're searching is a little different.
I agree, but I think what Crooked is trying to say is that you can target the same audience, but you can market yourself in a different way. Like my audience, incredibly, is under 30. Most of it, you know, it's we do these parties. I'm like, who are all these 25-year-olds? Like, I can be mad people's like daddy, like literally in this audience, you know. But I don't market myself in a TikTok-centric, reel-driven kind of way. It's just that as they come up in this community or as they move to the city, somebody's telling them like, oh, no, you should go to a DJ Moma party. And however I got to that point, I'm extremely happy with that end result, right? And I think what Crooked is saying is that some of these DJs are at that level, but they're trying to out-TikTok the youngins. And that's when it looks a little goofy, right?
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, because I feel like there's a Gen Z is like the anti-cringe generation. They have no cringe factor.
Yeah, nothing is cringe.
Like nothing is cringe.
Nothing is cringe.
It's like if it goes, it's nothing is cringe because in the end, the bottom line is if I go viral or if this blows up,
I win.
It's all worth it.
It doesn't matter what I do.
Right.
I could do the most like despicable shit, but if I blow up, fuck you, I'm winning. So there is no cringe. But I feel like certain generations where we're kind of aware of it, of like what to be proud of and what not to be proud of, and having some sort of shame to a certain degree.
But you could say that they're better off for not having any cringe. They're better off. It's one of those ignorance is bliss kind of thing. And I think they might be ignorant to a construct that's man-made.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They might be better off not cringing about anything. I could never do what people do right now. The way people overshare and the way they leverage it to then self-promote. It's a little insane as far as I'm concerned. But maybe I'm bogged down by all these hang-ups from the way we grew up, you know? Maybe they're better off than us, you know?
Before we end this podcast, I have one question I have to ask you. And it's been like, I've been waiting for you to come back from Africa about it. And it's about Afro House.
Oh, man.
Everyone wants to hear your take on Afro House.
The State of the Union address.
Yeah. And it's something that kind of bothered you last year a little bit. About who the face of Afro House is.
Listen, I think when it comes to Afro House, a lot of us were really excited about Amapiano because we're like, bro, this is a gateway drug. If we get everybody to start dancing to like 112, 113, 114 BPM records that are dance records in nature with chords and all of that,
right?
It's opening the way for people's palates to start appreciating house and dance music. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And a lot of us been having this conversation. Woo, gospel house is coming back. We got like some smooth shit being cooked up everywhere. It's only a matter of time that low tempo Afro house comes back in the mix. 118 BPM, 119, 120. Not like 125 BPM and up, which is more like the tribal house from back in the days, right? And so there's a lot of artists that have been in that lane for a while. Obviously, like people like Oskido, people like Shimza, people like De Capo, and I think just before we got to that moment where, you know, when I say we, I mean kind of like mainstream Afro-Caribbean DJs who dabble in Amapiano and mainstream music, just before we could pivot people to Afro House, I think there's been this Afro House light movement that just kind of sounds like an offshoot of Tulum or Burning Man bass music.
You're talking about, you're calling it Afro House light.
I'm calling it Afro House light.
There was a conversation I had with Dances, shout out to Dances, and we were kind of calling it gentrified Afro House.
I mean, however you want to look at it. We're talking about like these really thin kind of beats with R&B vocals from the 2000s.
Well, you think they're getting, like Afro House was getting stripped down to a certain degree? Like the one that's popular right now, the version of Afro House that's popular.
Yeah, I just think it's a misnomer. It's not Afro House, the one that got popular right now.
That's not Afro House.
It's not.
Like, so kind music.
I think kind music is very interesting. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know about them until they DJ'd at the Pyramids of Giza. At which point you have to be like, who the fuck are these guys, you know? And they've been doing this for a while. And no pun intended, we're just seeing the tip of the pyramid.
Right.
Pause. You can pause that too if you want.
No, it's fine.
And I think the world is discovering them at a time where they've paid incredible dues. They really know their music. But unfortunately, it's with like this saccharine elevator music version of Afro House. And as the world is discovering them, and they're a huge vehicle for the genre, people are discovering that sound and thinking it's Afro House. And then they probably know better, you know? There's way harder, way more ancestral, way more spiritual, way more guttural, way more percussive brand of Afro House. And that's kind of like what the brand that a lot of people like me have been trying to play to their audience whenever practical, right?
Yeah.
And just kind of waiting for this big Afro House moment. Like we had a big Amapiano moment summer of 2021 and summer of 2022. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it's come in like this Trojan horse, right? Mm. Like, nah, this ain't it. This is, whatever this is, it's like a distilled light version of Afro House for, you know, people in Dubai, for, you know, people in maybe Greece, you know, maybe even for people in Ibiza. And people in Ibiza know better because they do get the big Afro House headliners over there, you know?
But you're like, I find it interesting that this is as big as it is and as much as you're involved, how does this become under the radar for you? You know, like last year I texted you early on. I was like, yo, this new record, Adam Port, Move, is popping. And you're like, what is this?
I mean, I'm in a bubble, man. I'm in a bubble of black people. Look at their audience. Their audience is all white people, right?
Yeah.
You look at these shows, it's white people, it's like Lebanese people. It's like, it's not the core constituents of who makes and dictates what is Afro House. So it's almost like the blind leading the blind, right? And it's so many of them and in such big media markets, if collectively they come together and say that this is Afro House, that's how it gets presented to the world.
In all fairness, let's admit that we're kind of ignorant to this like new form of Afro House but it's been supposedly building and evolving since 2019, around that year. But Afro House itself has obviously been around since the 2000s.
But weren't they signed
or even the 90s? Because people are saying like, you know, all the who are they bringing up? Like Sumisai say these OG 90s house was technically Afro House or early signs of Afro House.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with anything you said. I think there was a lot of, Afro percussive house from New York in the 90s. I think we probably end up calling it tribal house.
Right.
But there's been a lot of stuff going on in South Africa and other parts of the continent since forever, since before house started. Like, all these things. They have something called Township Jive. Then they had something that was called Bubblegum and Pansula music, and then Kwaito and Bacardi. And all those things evolved to the point where people in South Africa and the southern region of the continent took those influences and mixed them with mostly New York house and Chicago house to create the sound that we call Afro house since the mid 2000s and later.
So Afro house is technically originally from South Africa. Because people say it's like it's from Kenya and South Africa.
I'm not familiar with the Afro house from Kenya, but I know that in the southern part of the continent, in Angola and South Africa and Mozambique to a certain extent, they've been banging that drum, no pun intended, for a while, And I think with South Africa is the one that, had a lot of just cultural ingredients to work with. And then they would had so much exposure to American house music that they just kind of mixed the two. And they kind of gave us, artists like Black Coffee, like Oskido, like Shimza, so on and so forth. Those are the iterations of what we call Afro house today.
So if you go to like South Africa and you speak about Afro house, it's a completely different Afro house to this Afro house that's like at these festivals.
Yeah, they don't even consume this.
They don't consume it.
They don't consume it in South Africa.
But they're completely aware of it, yes or no?
I think they are, especially on the industry side of things, right? Like, I don't know if...
This sounds so mysterious.
I don't know if consumers in South Africa are aware of it, but on the industry side, the DJs, the producers, the bookers, the managers, they're well aware of the kind of music phenomenon and all the adjacent, like Afro House Light kind of music. They're well aware of it because those are the biggest bookings in the world right now. And they have to figure out, well, how do I get my artist in there?
Exactly.
How do I get booked for that? Now you're talking like real bags. You're talking Ibiza bags,
right? That's interesting. So they're aware of the opportunities to like capitalize off of this.
Yeah.
This new form of Afro House.
Yep.
But you wouldn't call it Afro House. In a perfect world, what would you call this?
In a perfect world, I'll just call it like easy listening, progressive house. I don't know. Easy listening, tribal house. I would probably just leave it as house. So don't they have like a ambient electronica kind of genre? But I would love for it to not be called Afro House, because it's doing a disservice for everything else that's building and gaining steam and momentum right now. It's doing such a disservice to it that Afro House artists and producers are making stuff that kind of sounds like it so they can get the bookings. Real
Afro House producers and artists are catering to this new sound.
Yes, like they're making their crossover record.
To make money.
They're making their crossover record. Right? You might have a hip hop album with all like street anthems and then one song with like Ashanti on it. That's your crossover record for the radio. So and that's what they're kind of doing right now.
It's like the Lox making Jiggy with it. What's that song?
I don't know.
If You Think You Jiggy, right?
No, I don't think it's that extreme.
Yeah, I mean, I still like that record. That was still hip hop.
But that was a little like their way of kind of crossing over and being signed into Bad Boy and stuff.
What was the bad records off of In My Lifetime, Volume 1? The one that everybody hated.
Oh, Sunshine.
Yeah. Sunshine. It's like Jay-Z making those.
Right.
Yo, but did anybody see this coming? Because it's like, it felt like in pop and in R&B, they were doing like an island sound. Like, like the Ed Sheeran.
Yeah.
The Rihanna.
They call it Tropical House.
Right, Tropical House. So
that's what we should call it, Tropical House. It's perfect. It exists already. The name.
So it feels like it's kind of like they're overstepping because it's kind of happening, and they kind of want a piece of it, but they want to kind of take. Because I don't get it. No disrespect, but I having a problem like hearing chants that's not really done by like somebody from the diaspora.
You're talking about I like so Goldie and I were kind of like talking about Afro House, and we were trading music, and I sent them a couple songs that are popping, and one of the newer. It's not new now, but one of the kind of music joints that was popping last year was "Say What," and you said you didn't like the African chants on it.
I don't like the feeling of it. It's very conflicting, and it's not disrespectful to say it, but it just I'm looking for a certain type of spiritual feeling when I hear certain type of music, and it just a little disconnect.
But would you have that disconnect if you didn't know about?
No, when you feel it, it's like
when you hear it,
it's just very inauthentic.
You'd be like, this is ancestral, but they have some different ancestors.
Yeah, it's like
it's not the same ancestors.
And you hear it immediately, or at least I did.
Because to play devil's advocate, right?
God's advocate, devil's advocate is enough.
To play God's advocate.
All right.
You know what I mean?
One could say they're not doing a disservice to Afro House. They're creating a bigger market for Afro House. They're allowing the market to grow, and they're kind of like, commercializing. They're bringing Afro House to the mainstream. They're creating opportunities for Afro House producers and DJs from South Africa to kind of capitalize off of this and grow their market.
It should be called something else.
What do you think about that argument, though? Because one of the things I think is, as Americans, we're kind of, because of the history of America, we're always quick to see the appropriation of something. But I'm wondering if South Africans, from their perspective, are kind of appreciating everyone loving their sound and being inspired by Afro House and creating and spreading this.
But it's not their sound that's the problem. It's this tropical house,
hybrid.
It's kind of like, like everything's appropriation in America. I mean, all over the world, but from an American's perspective, everything's appropriation because of the history of America and how much has been appropriated from multiple cultures, especially Black American culture. So when you see like Adele in braids, Americans are like, oh my gosh, she's appropriating Black culture. Jamaicans are like, yo, she's fucking having fun. That's dope that she's wearing braids and she's like listening to dance hall and reggae, and she's at a festival enjoying reggae. And I'm wondering if South Africans are looking at this from a more positive perspective of inspiration and appreciation for their culture. Whereas from American perspective, it's more like an appropriation.
I think the producers are just looking at it like it's an opportunity for a bag. And again, it's not the sound.
But they're not as insulted or offended as...
It's an issue that people talk about.
They do talk about it.
It's an issue that people talk about. Like,
what's their perspective? What are they saying to you?
The perspective is that stuff is really not good at all. And it's not Afro House. I think we found the name for it. It's minimal tropical house with acapellas. Minimal tropical blend house. It's a mouthful. But it's just, how do we leverage? How do we break into this market for our artists? Now, this is not meant to be some sort of like indictment of kind of music, because I believe that they're real house heads and they paid their dues and they've actually played the deep underground sound, and we're just discovering them after they made it. And it's possible that they do put on South African artists and African artists. Again, it's not just people in South Africa who make Afro House. It's all over the continent. But, I think we're going to have an issue where if this term Afro House sticks with this sound right now, we're either going to have to rebrand real Afro House, or we're going to have to hope that the leaders of the genre, whether it's Kind of Music and Black Coffee, they come together and they stage a re-education for everyone, right? Like, now that we got y'all attention, and we gave you like the little appetizers and the amuse-bouche, Now y'all are ready for real Afro house. So let's see if you can get with it. But now the difference is real Afro house is dance music, you know? And this minimal tropical house light kind of hybrid, it's just like poser music. It's just music to chill to with your phone and take selfies with your friends. I mean, you see it in some of those videos. It's really bad.
In your opinion, when you see this market grow as it is, and you see the opportunities that it's forming for actual Afro house producers and musicians and artists, are you torn about kind of the two forms merging together or coexisting? You just want it to be rebranded?
Listen, this whole sound could have not have existed, and I think Afro house would have still made it. Like, you understand, like when Black Coffee started getting all the Ibiza bookings, his sound went from like more soulful Afro to a bit more deep and trancey, which is what was needed for the Ibiza market. And in turn, a lot of Afro house producers in South Africa started making that sound. But the beauty of it is it was still hard. It was still percussive. Maybe had less harmonies, but it was still hard and percussive. And some of them were already getting bookings in Ibiza in that lane. So the bags were starting to arrive for those producers.
Right.
I think what we saw with this other movement is that it just turbocharged the whole thing. And it went to an even higher level that people aspire to now. You know, so if that movement hadn't emerged, I think the Afro house would have still been headed in the right direction. It would have been doing just fine.
Is it somewhat disturbing that somehow in the end, like African music, when it crosses over or hits mainstream, it has to cater to the mainstream non-African crowds? It seems like there's always this turn where it kind of like it's out of their hands and it becomes something else that they have to conform to.
Yeah, I'm disturbed by it because it feels Pat Boonish. You know what I mean? As much as, you know, rock and roll was destined to be, you know, the music of the time, it just feels a little bit inappropriate for music as historically black as Afro house. It feels like the conforming thing, it feels a little uncomfortable.
You know,
and I'm not even in the house. I'm not even into Afro house that deep, but it just feels like an uncomfortable type of position to be headed to. And time will tell if this is just a fad and maybe just dips out in another year or so.
Yeah.
But just the fact of it, having to conform, is very uncomfortable for me.
I think I agree with Goldie. And I also think it's very complicated because predominantly the people who kind of support house music and buy tickets all over the world, it's non-black people, because house music is big in Europe.
Right.
House music is big in Latin America. House music is big in North America. You know what I'm saying?
It's huge.
It's huge in Asia.
And it's getting bigger and bigger.
You know? So that's what I was talking about with the sound of Black Coffee when he became bigger than just South Africa, when he became bigger than just New York and London and those kind of like culture enclaves. He had to change the sound a little. And I'm not mad at him because look at all the bags. You know what I'm saying? Look at the residencies in Ibiza. Look at the residencies that's upcoming at Brooklyn Mirage, so on and so forth. So when you get to house music, you already have to create a bit of a hybrid for everyone. You know, but I think that hybrid of Afro house already existed with the stuff that Black Coffee was doing recently, or at least the sound that he was playing, right? This new minimal tropical Afro house light, they're kind of taking it into the mainstream, and that's a leap too far, too early. You know, like, let us build the genre
and define it.
Let us define it in a way that people know what it is and people understand that it's unmistakably like a black art form from Africa. And then you can dilute it after that. But it just got diluted way too quick without anybody really paying attention, which is the crazy part.
But isn't the sad pattern of it all is that that's how it always happens? It's the uncontrolled nature of how it works.
I don't know, man. I think by the time hip hop became commercialized, everybody knew that what hip hop was. right?
Do you think so?
Yeah, I don't think there's a kid in Chile in 1995 who thought that hip hop was a Chilean art form.
But let's go back even further. Let's look at the 80s.
But then it wasn't popularized. It was only local.
Well, you had like Blondie, right? With Rapture.
Right.
That was maybe the face of to a certain audience in a mainstream level. That was the face of hip hop. And then you had like Beastie
I don't
Boys.
believe that.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't think so?
I don't believe that.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I think it was a necessary step for the exposure of it.
Yeah.
To say this is what I'm doing, I'm rapping a little bit on this record, but I don't believe that was the face of hip hop.
Yeah.
I think this is
the face of Afro House, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Right. Even with Amapiano, there's no one who's not South African who's the face of Amapiano.
So you're saying
now.
the large like mainstream does not see Black Coffee as the face of Afro House. They see Kind Music as the face.
Yeah, because honestly, people didn't even talk about Black Coffee as an Afro House artist. They always talk about renowned international South African house producer. They almost called him just a house producer. This term Afro House is like this gimmicky thing that's sticking to what they're doing. And you see it. Like, even my algorithm is all like, do you want to know how to make Afro House like Kind Music? Download these sounds, download these packs. And then the music that's playing in the background is this minimal tropical thing. And I'm like, that's not Afro House.
You know what's interesting to me? Because, Tyler had this discussion about what was Afrobeat or where was it from? And people were like coming at her like, I don't see the same reaction from this. And it's like, this seems like it's obvious. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Where she was getting awards for
Because it hadn't reached the mainstream yet.
Yeah.
And it's still kind of like underground in a sense. So the people who would feel really passionate about defending it, they don't even really care about this whole thing was like a heist, bro. It happened at night. Everybody was sleeping. This is Watergate.
So back to the hip hop analogy. It's almost, if we were going to make an analogy of it, obviously it's not like hip hop, right?
Yeah.
But it's almost like if it was like hip hop, it's almost like it skipped Sugar Hill Gang, Curtis Blow, and just went straight to like Vanilla Ice. And
Vanilla Ice, Macklemore. And then people are just like, oh, Macklemore
that's hip hop.
Is a North American artist. So this hip hop is some white North American music.
So everyone's like, oh shit, Vanilla Ice is dope. Like, I like Vanilla Ice. That's hip hop.
Yeah.
And they don't know about Slick Rick, KRS-One,
Run
DMC, nothing.
Yeah.
That's how it feels.
That's because it came to the mainstream like that. And behind them, you have an entire army of producers trying to replicate the sound right now. I think you play some of those songs. I don't have any of those songs, but like the kind of like minimal Afro house, you have to play it at some of your parties?
Well, no, like I think like around 2023, it was like one of those things I had to download just in case. And then in 2024, there became definitive hits, crossover hits.
In 2023, was it already called Afro House or did it have no label?
It was Afro House.
That's crazy, man. We were all asleep at the wheel when this thing was going on. So we had no clue.
So in 2023, I was getting folders of Afro House and I was looking for Afro House that were basically a majority mashups.
Right.
They were like, very much like EDM remixes now, right? Like Tech House, it's all remixes, nothing really original songs. So I was getting like Khalees Milkshake on with Afro House. I was getting Kings of Leon. I was getting, any type of big American pop song in the last 30 years was getting transformed to an Afro House remix in 2023. It wasn't until 2024 with that Adam Port Move record where there was an actual song that seemed like an authentic Afro House crossover hit.
And for you, it was Afro House because it sounded like those records from the 2 previous summers.
Well, from a open format DJ, the Adam Port Move record that's the first Afro House I could play in a mainstream open format room.
Right.
So of course I'm gonna hit you up and be like, yo, Mo, you know about this? And you're like, what the fuck is this?
Right.
And I was shocked. I was like, whoa, you don't know? How do you not know about this? And that's That was the more shocking thing. You're like, I don't know about this shit. And you're like, what is this?
I've never heard this record played out. I've only heard it once played out. It was at Everyday People Miami. And oddly enough, I'm not throwing him under the bus because he's the homie. Addy played it, and then he apologized to me. He was like, yo, I have to play that Miami thing for them. And I was like, what is this? I don't even know what it is. Mm-hmm. And it didn't even really necessarily land like that. He could have gotten by without playing it. At the time, I thought it was cool. I was like, oh, look at that. A little tropical house record.
Yeah.
Switch it up a little. But I didn't understand that it was like this banger that you have to have.
So
I still don't have it in Serato or on a stick.
So from an open format DJ perspective in 2024, that was us playing Afro House. That would have been like, oh, this is the Afro House that Momo's talking about.
Right.
You feel me?
Right.
So everyone's like, yo, this shit is dope. Like, yo, we're finally, I was like, in my head, I'm like, wow, this is a great year where Afro House is going to infiltrate open format. But when I talked to you, I was like, wait, you don't know about this, and this is not the Afro House you're talking about. So then what is this? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I kind of saw it going there, though, with like, when the Tropical House thing with the Justin Bieber stuff and the Ed Sheeran, I started seeing.
You saw it, right?
They were trying to tag that, and I was like, but this R&B, so how is that going to work? But it felt like they were trying to make waves over. I just didn't think that it would be Afro House because it was just like, I just really looked at it as being too cultural for them to make waves on that.
But there is a definite ignorance as to when that gentrified like Afro House Instagram reel went out. There's two different sides of it. Where there's this ignorant side that's like, what are you talking about? This is Afro House. I've been playing this in the Bahamas or like at a Bahamas resort, or I've been playing this at in Miami, or I've been playing this in wherever for like the past 2-3 years. So what are you talking about? It's and like I said, it's been around and evolving for the last 6-7 years. But to me, it's incredible that it's been under your radar, and then it just really hit the ground running in 2024. Not saying that there weren't a bunch of people who devoted themselves to the scene or this industry, but it's just kind of like you said it.
I'm in a bubble. I'm in a bubble of predominantly black people everywhere I go around the world. And it just goes to show that it's not part of that bubble. Therefore, where does that sound?
So that's the problem.
Where does it originate? Where did it get cultivated? Where did it grow?
But that's the problem, no?
In Western Europe, in Greece, in Ibiza, in Dubai, and those places. But in Latin America.
So that is a problem, though, isn't it? Not?
It's a problem because it's called Afro House, and I think the pioneers of that scene maybe aren't doing enough to educate people, I don't know.
Or the powers that be have enough power to sway to create the new definition. And that could be,
We'll see. We'll see. I mean,
time will tell.
Time will tell because the music doesn't have longevity, right? It's just not good. It's not sophisticated. It's very light. It doesn't have a lot of elements to it, So to me, it sounds like it's going to be good for a year or two. And then if they've drawn enough people into that world, then maybe they can take them to the next level of Afro House. And if it registers for them, then, maybe all's well that ends well. This was actually a gateway to the real Afro House. But if you get them to that level and these people there are like, well, this is deeply percussive and deeply soulful and kind of African, I'm not interested. Can we pivot back to EDM or top 40 house? Then it was just a cash grab for 2 years. Time will tell. I
mean, I just think it's so interesting that it's been evolving for the past 6-7 years, and it's been kind of under the radar. And then, and now it's like a lot of people who are involved in this tropical house, Afro house scene, they're really insulted by the term of it not being actual Afro house. Because they've been devoting the past 5-7 years to it. You know what I mean? this kind of miseducation and ignorance, right? And it's like it's like you're pulling the rug from under them.
Yeah, listen, this sound has been around for 6 years, 7 years, 10 years. You know, who knows? Afro House has been around for 20 plus years. You know what I mean? So whoever is new to the game doesn't get to define it. You know, and I'm not even really a stakeholder in the Afro House scene, but it can't just be because the sound was bubbling at Burning Man or Tulum for the past 10 years. It's really a derivative of bass music. That's what it is. And they had started doing that too. Started bringing the 90s and 2000s acapellas over bass music. And they did it over tech house as well.
Yeah.
You know, so this is just like another hybrid of that, you know. I think only the original stakeholders can get to define it.
So it's like the first impression they had was Vanilla Ice. It's almost like that, right?
I would probably say more like Macklemore, because Macklemore is a good artist, you know, and Kind of Music are good artists. It's just that you can't really identify the whole genre with them, you know. Equating them to Vanilla Ice is a bit
ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It's clownish.
Word to your mother?
Extreme. To the extreme. To the extreme.
Nice.
But I was looking at it more from a timeline perspective. Like, you know, Vanilla Ice, the
Macklemore's
timeline.
more like 20, 25 years.
Yeah, and Afro House has been around for 20, 25 years, maybe more.
Yeah, you guys are right. Okay. Yeah. Mo, can you put together like some type of edit pack of like, I don't know, like a curated folder of like Afro House that you would be suggesting like for our like Patreon listeners or our Patreon followers to kind of to give them example of the difference of what you're talking about, of authentic actual Afro House versus, you know, what has been commercialized with Kind Music and CERN?
Yeah, I mean, I can put together maybe like 5 classic, 5 current. They're not going to be like the end all be all, but it's just my take on Afro House.
That'd be dope though.
Yeah. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, no problem.
And you're doing all these parties, so I'm pretty sure, you know, they're used to hearing it.
Yeah, and you know, I know it sounds cheesy, but we say this about house music too, right? We say house music is not a genre, it's a feeling, right? And it's a bit cliche thing that people say, but it's the same thing with Afro House. It's more than a genre. There's an actual feeling. And, you know, when the feeling is absent, then you have to be like, I don't know. I don't think this is Afro House. But I'll drop some stuff in the Dropbox.
Yeah. On top of the Patreon edit pack you're going to provide for us, thanks, Mo. But, like, what's an event or what's something that motherfuckers could check out to actually experience the real Afro House?
Well, I think, you know, obviously I'm most familiar with South Africa, is where I spend most of my time.
Yeah.
But like one of the preeminent Afro House parties over there is called Kunye. It's DJ Shimza's party. And, you know, he'll just have some of the best Afro House DJs and producers. And he's tight with Black Coffee, so Black Coffee will pop up once or twice a year. It's a movie. But Kunye is one of 3 collectives that's going to be at the inaugural Afrotronic Festival, if you will, in the Canary Islands in October. And so that's DJ Shimza's Kunye, one collective. Major League's DJ Balcony Mix is another collective. And the third collective is Everyday People, which is cool that we got, you know, tapped up for that. So it's going to be a 3-day festival in Tenerife in the Canary Islands. They got like, you know, different types of parties, like big club-like events, big amphitheater, you know, visuals, festival style. And the event that Everyday People's involved with is the Saturday, the middle event. It's a pool party, you know, like a massive pool party, I think at the Hard Rock Hotel in Tenerife. So it could be a couple thousand people. You know, we curated the lineup for that day. But if you want to hear like Afro House and experience it, I think that's going to be a great weekend. I might as well pitch it since I'm here. So Kunye and DJ Shimza and their crew, they're going on Friday. Everyday People, we're on Saturday. We curated a lineup which includes Francis Mercier, who's huge in the Afro House world right now. You know, we have myself. We have Rosie Gold, fire South African artist based out of London. She, dabbles in Amapiano, Afro house, gom, etc. We got some of the homies from Amsterdam, Jael, FS Green.
Okay.
Obviously I'm on the lineup as well that day. That's on Saturday. And then on Sunday, Major League DJs have their balcony mix, which for the past year and a half has been pivoting out of exclusively Amapiano into Amapiano and three-step and Afro house. So, if ever I think you want to hear the sound in its purest form, I think that'll be a great weekend for that. The weekend of October 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
It's very it's very interesting to me. Like I'm extremely curious about it. I'm glad we finally got to speak about it.
Yeah, I mean it's just a clerical error, It's a clerical error. They got carried all the way to the top and no one fixed it.
All right, before we end this though, how was Dreamville Fest? That was the last one.
Yeah,
right?
Dreamville Fest was great. It was very emotional. It was the last one.
So people don't know that your two brothers that are part of Dreamville.
Yeah.
Boss and Ebe.
Right.
Ebe is the president of Dreamville.
That's right.
Yeah.
He's J. Cole's manager and also his business partner in Dreamville. He's
right.
El Presidente is what we call Ebe, And then Boss is the first artist that they signed to Dreamville, and he's a rapper in his own right. So the last Dreamville Fest was definitely like a family affair. It was bittersweet because everything has a lifespan and arc. It's probably the right time to end it for a variety of reasons. But once everyone was there, just hanging out with everyone one last time, and the execution of the festival was just flawless. It was almost like the best one that they pulled off, and they saved it for last. And then we're like, oh, damn, this is my favorite festival. I mean, granted, we get treated like royalty over there, but It is such a fun festival, such a good vibe. But it's definitely the last one. It's not going to be the last festival in that park in Raleigh because I think it generated so much economic activity for the city that they're trying to figure out a way to keep it, maybe with Live Nation or maybe with Cole overseeing some bookings.
Right.
So they're going to keep bringing the festival to Raleigh yearly, but it won't be called Dreamville Fest. It won't have that Dreamville umbrella.
Is there a reason why they wanted it to be the last?
I don't know.
You said it was perfect timing.
It was perfect.
Is it because the fall off is coming up? Is it the fall off?
No, I just think there's a lot of redundancy in festivals. Again, our word of the day. There's a lot of redundancy in festivals, and the same reason that we're not finding new music to play. That's also symptomatic of the fact that there are no new artists coming out. There are no new. I mean, SZA is a superstar, right? But when SZA's been around for a decade, maybe, maybe more. Like we used to have, new artists that could sell tickets every 2 or 3 years. You don't have that.
Yeah.
Tyla, maybe, and you see she's booked all over the world at the same time. So
we definitely saw it at Coachella this year.
Yeah,
like Lady Gaga, Green Day.
Exactly, and so if I think if you're doing a festival, you have to understand that if you can keep it going, there might be like diminishing returns culturally, not even financially, because I'm sure they could sell it out every year just with Cole headlining, which they do. Everybody knows Cole's the headliner. They drop the tickets, it sells out, and then they announce the Saturday headliner or what have you. So, I just think they're withdrawing at a good time so it doesn't become a force,
Did that inform your decision about Everyday People, and did they give you like a glimpse into?
No, I obviously those are my guys. I'm like 6 or 7 or 8 years older than Ebe and Cole. Like, I have my own takes on the lifespan and the journey of Everyday People, and I'm kind of further along in my career than they are in theirs. Now, mind you, their career is totally different. Like this global superstar, right? One of the biggest rap artists of all time. But if you marry the business of it all with the creative, you kind of see at one point where you're like, all right, I think the business is starting to like wear me down a little. And I want to be able to kind of pivot it so I can still enjoy the creative aspect of it. And I think maybe like withdrawing Dreamville Festival, that could be a part of it. You know, Cole's still making music, you know, Eve's still developing artists, this, that, and the third, and maybe they just don't want to worry about having to plan this massive festival, because now you're a festival producer.
Yeah,
that's a big deal.
Yeah,
you know, something you stress about for 9 months consecutively until you execute.
And that's like 5 years straight, right?
Yeah, 5 years straight. They had to deal with COVID too, where they had to move it. A couple years they had to deal with bad weather or whatnot. And I think they put on 5 great years, you know. I think the only, you know.
And not counting the tours that they have to do.
And then, yeah, they have their own tours and all of that, and recording music and that whole bit. So no, I think they had a great run. It's a great festival. It was great for the city of Raleigh. And I think the city can use the template to keep it going in one shape or another.
All right, so where's the first Everyday People we can see you at?
All right, so we're launching in Atlanta, April 26th.
You're launching Atlanta, huh? Not New York?
Yeah, because, you know...
you typically launch in New York, though.
Not necessarily.
No?
We tend to start off in April, where it's warmer. Houston, L.A., and Atlanta usually is where we start.
Okay.
And it's also where we end, right? Because we're able to do Houston and Atlanta in October.
Got it.
New York usually kicks off in May, Memorial Day weekend.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So we're starting off with Atlanta, April 26th. Then we're off to Houston, May 10th. Then we're off to LA, May 18th. And then we have Toronto on the 24th, as well as Everyday Afrique, which is like the Afrocentric one at Nowadays in New York on Memorial Day Monday. And then the main event is June 1st at Brooklyn Mirage.
Brooklyn Mirage, crazy.
That's really big. It's exciting. You know, we got DJ Puffy. We got DJ Miss Milan, who we just did a dope event with her and Doshi in LA for H&M. We got Silent Addy, and of course we got myself and Millhouse. So that's June 1st at the Brooklyn Mirage. Then after that, I think June 7th we're in Chicago, June 8th we're in LA, and you know, just rinse and repeat after that. All those cities, you run them back a few times. You add London, Berlin, Amsterdam, Paris, Lisbon. That's pretty much the cities for the summer, you know. Okay. And then by the time we get to November,
draining that ATM, boy.
Brazil,
draining that ATM.
I'm gonna try to be here for June 1st.
Yeah, please. Through. No, I think you guys should, man. Could be a moment.
I will come through. Well, Mo, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you since December or November, and it's good to see you, fam. And I'm glad you could make it back on the podcast. And
State of the Union.
No, it's nice to see you guys.
Yeah, no. Much love, DJ Moma. Thank you, man.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
If you want to watch more episodes from R.O.A.D Podcast, click either links on the left or the right. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page and get updated on new uploads throughout the week. Peace.